I think I remember we talked about this last year. Because I know we were like right around the same discussions and time periods and everything. Yes.
I know.
So rough life.
Must be nice.
So I survived the retirement.
That is the mic board. So what we have going on, and the reason I don't have a microphone yet, is microphone cables have 3 layers in them.
Yeah.
Our amp only accepts 2. So they basically have to leave the ground off, and if you leave the ground off, we're gonna need that. Some, or not need that, but static. So I'm trying to figure out what that solution is. Yeah.
Where are you going, Jenny?
Hold it. Jenny, where are you going?
Yeah, that's even better.
Must be nice.
You take so many vacations, you can't remember where they are. I don't know.
South of Grand.
All right, Mr. Mayor, whenever you're ready, we're up on Zoom.
All right. Let's call to order our next meeting for the night, our workshop, for our first budget workshop, Wednesday, July 31st, 2024. Since this is a workshop, we'll go ahead and we'll start with our public comment. Public comment and workshops follows the same rules as those for regular commission meetings, limited to 3 minutes, and please just announce your name and address before you speak, and we'll go ahead and start with comment here in the log cabin. On?
I don't think it's on.
I didn't hear it. Yep, I see a light.
Okay, so I'm technologically challenged, as we know.
I think that our microphone is
I don't
technologically
think-
challenged.
Oh, is it on? Cool.
There it is.
You sure? Got
We
it.
got it.
Okay, now that we all know I'm technologically challenged. Janie Anderson, 11905 Northeast 11th Place. In the asks budget, I see the proposal for a 35% pay increase for the manager's position, 14 on the clerk and 18 on the rec manager. Now, I know that's all negotiable stuff, but when you start with levels of percentage increases that extreme, it really does send a bad optic. And in that same budget, when I look at something that I know is kind of near and dear to most of us who live here, landscaping maintenance, there isn't 1 penny of an increase. And that's something we all see, and that's something we kind of take pride in, but there's no change to that. I also see that the rec center improvements has been zeroed out. Now, I'm going to just take a guess and think maybe your plan is, as you go through discussions, you'll pull from that pool of money in capital improvement and move monies in there. But I would have thought there would have at least been some sort of a laundry list of things you're aiming for and cost factors, a starting point versus a 0. And the parking at the rec center, and this has been discussed before, it doesn't meet code. The very code that meeting after meeting, I chair the board that is hearing people come in front of us and we're telling them they need to put in their proper parking spaces, as well we should, but we're not leading by example. Another question, what is HR support and why did it go from 3,000 to 20,000? Speaking of code, unless I'm missing something, I don't see the manager's position, and I thought that was Doreen's position or is Doreen's position. I see a supervisor and 3 co-compliance officers for a total of 4, irrespective of title, who are essentially code compliance officers versus 3 currently. We're less than 1 square mile. And now you guys know me and you know there is nobody more pro code than I am. But if I'm reading this correctly, I can't even figure how to justify 4 positions. And I don't see the admin position. Now, I have one more comment I kind of want to make on code, but if nobody minds, I'd kind of prefer to do that when you get into the code discussion because it's more applicable then. And my only last question now would be, so that hopefully somebody will answer it. Frequently, you see on the calendar 2 public meetings listed at roughly the same time. One might be 6, one might be 6:30. Maybe we were told incorrectly, but for years we have been told you can't do that. It's open government violation, sunshine violation, because people might want to go to 2 meetings. So maybe somebody could sort of address that tonight. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, that's new.
Is that our Oscar playoff music?
Yeah.
You got playoff music.
Okay, so, any other comment here in the log cabin? No. All right, moving over to Zoom then.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes, thank you. I just have a small question on code. You have 3 code officers that are supposed to be out in the field doing their job. And I see you have 1 laptop and 1 car. The numbers don't seem to work out for 3 code officers with only 1 laptop and 1 car. Or is 2 of them quite often just in the office and only one's out there working? I'd like to hear the answer on that one. Thank you. Bob Anderson, 11905 Northeast 11th Place.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Okay, so we got a couple of questions on code. Maybe we can talk about them when we get into the code portion since they're specific to line items. I'm gonna put a reminder here to do that. Okay, so having completed public comment at this time, we'll go into our discussion on the budget. Mr. Manager, would you like to start us off?
Absolutely. I presented 2 budgets to you. Our finance department, Paul and Sharon did a phenomenal job with the status quo budget, or what I'm calling the status quo budget. That is essentially maintaining the same level of services. There are some expected increases built in, such as insurance premiums, wage increases, things along those lines. The second budget, the asks budget, is what the administration as well as the different department heads have asked for in this next budget or want the commission to consider in this next budget. That does put us about $700,000 over revenue. So there are definitely things we're not going to be able to afford. The reason for me doing it this way and watching the budget process last year, the commission was very active in choosing what things to include, what things not to include. One of the questions that we repeatedly heard is, if we had all the money in the world, what will we do? What are the priorities? What else should we be considering? So that's why we did this process this way. Once the commission decides what they do want to include, for example, pull things from the asks budget into the status quo, or if there are things you want to remove or tweak in the status quo, then we'll get to work and create what that actual budget's going to look like. There may be cuts in certain areas to fund what we can, or we may have to come back and do that ask for the additional revenue from millage. So the purpose or my hope for tonight is to find out what things are important to the commission, what you do want to include, or if there are things you definitely want to exclude, and then we can get to work on it. The plan, or my hope is second budget workshop. All of this will be presented to you, and it should be a fairly easy conversation. And then by the time we get to the first and second hearing, the hard work should be done, and we should just be improving what we've already discussed. One of the other comments that I've heard over the past budget process is the missing context. So as you look at both the asks and the status quo budget, you'll see the previous 3 fiscals. So we can see what it is we've actually spent. And then we've been getting the regular monthly unaudited financial reports to let you know what we spent so far this year. That's my spiel.
Can I ask you
Mr.
a quick question about that, the 2 versions. I understand why you did it. I found it a little confusing, but I'm totally fine with it. But I just want to ask, I started looking at both and then I really went to your ask because I'm more interested in what you want, in addition to the status quo. is everything that's not an ask in the ask budget, all the other status quo stuff, they're all identical from version to version, yeah?
Correct.
Okay, so the ask budget is an exact duplicate of the status quo budget with all of your things marked in orange that you're asking for, and the redder things don't touch. Like, really, guys, don't touch them. Yellow, ooh, careful, like we have always done in the past.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Paul nods aren't heard on Zoom. So, okay. So, okay, that was my only question about that. Can I ask you before, are we going to go department by department?
However you would like to.
Is that how you're going to do this, Jonathan?
Was there anything you wanted to add, Paul, for context or anything?
So we're good.
No? Okay, then yes.
I have a
def-
couple of general things before we go into department.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is the way we've done it in the past. We go department by department. So yeah, I think that's the best way to do it.
But I have a couple sort of general things.
Yeah, sure.
But what is COLA for 2025, Paul, across the world, across municipalities, however those things are determined?
I have not pulled the index recently, but I know it's well above 5% in most cases,
Well above.
well above. Between 7 and 10 is not unusual. And I'm in the private sector personally, and you don't want to know that number. Probably already do, but
Okay. There's not a contingency in every department. Is it not your intent to have a contingency in every department because that was my understanding from years prior was that was in there because the money, then you have the ability to move money around within that department and you don't have to come back to us.
Correct. An example of that right now is we need to replace 3 of our firewalls. We don't have a contingency for that. The contingency would in this budget allow me to go ahead and take care of that.
But I didn't see a contingency within every department unless I missed it. I was looking for them in each department. I didn't see it. So is there going to be a contingency line in every department, Paul? Chris?
Last year's budget, there was a lot of discussion on that. Ideally, there would be a contingency in each department. I think the general consensus during the last budget session was you only wanted to have the one contingency. I believe it was in admin and then one in police. Beyond that, it was the commission's decision.
Okay, okay, if that's what you said, I have to go back to listen to the meetings. I thought we left a contingency. I thought we talked about wanting a contingency in each department so the manager wouldn't have to come back to us all the time. There was something built in there. What was that?
Mr. Anderson, could you mute, please?
Okay, Paul, on the cover, on the summary page, the very first, I'm looking at the ask version. I'm only looking at the ask version. So if you guys are going to be looking at things in the status quo version, please remind me because I'm looking at the ask version because it's more comprehensive.
Try and
Oh.
flip back and forth.
I'm sorry?
Try and flip back and forth.
I'm not doing that. So, because everything's in one, so I'll just rather look at the one. So, Paul, I have some questions about that summary. So total revenues, completely understand, total expenditures, I understand. And this proposed budget is 637 and change, higher expenses than revenue, right? Is what's proposing, and we're gonna have to that's what we're gonna be arm wrestling about here for the next couple of workshops.
correct.
So but it says on the left, excess revenues, and that's in parens expenditures. It's excess expenditures, not revenue, and it's in parens. It makes it look like it's excess revenue. It's expenditures, right?
Correct. When
Yeah.
it's negative in that context.
Yeah, but the way the brackets are in the heading, it's a little confusing. Okay. Can you explain the beginning and projected ending fund balances and then also the fund balance section at the bottom?
So the beginning and projected, obviously, we've got multiple years in there, so you can trace the growth. But
Mhm.
yes, you're proposing a fund balance at the end of this fiscal year of $3.3 million
And the fund balance is,
basically it's a projection of the end of this year, unexpired money plus last year's unexpired or unexpended funds.
it's what I call, and you cringe every time I say it, our savings account.
I don't mind.
Okay, so it's what I call
Even better, so
sorry.
you know, cringe.
Yeah, okay. So it's last year's plus this year's dump into the savings account. Okay. So the projection for ending balance for fiscal 24, what we're
3026.
so it's a little over 3 million. And next year, you're saying it's going to drop down to 2.4, but that's because it's accounting for that 637
Correct.
overage
That would
right now.
balance it.
So that will balance out. Okay, I just wanted to make sure of that. And then the bottom section, explain that, please.
So that's the directed strategy of this commission to identify non-emergency and emergency and capital improvement categories that we adopt as part of the final resolution. We set that percentage. This is based on last year's percentage adoption, how to split it.
But the emergency reserves for this current year is 75% of our total budget, and I don't see that number in here. That's what I'm confused about. So 75% of our total budget should be a whole lot more, unless I'm reading this wrong. It says assigned for emergency reserves in fiscal 20.
It's not of the total budget, it's of the remaining unassigned funds. So you take what falls to the bottom, take 75% of it, and that's exactly what that number is. The 1.8 is 75% of 2.2 million.
It's 75% of our total reserves.
Yes. Yes.
But that's why I'm not saying, I don't, then show me how that's 20, that's 75%.
Well,
So you're saying our total reserves, what's our total reserve?
it's 75% of the projected ending fund balance, which is the 3,026,000. Yes. So it's 75% of that. Is that not done correctly?
I was getting it confused with the reserve number above it. So
We're
you're
saying-
the
yeah.
2.2 and the 756 combined are our total reserve.
Yes.
Okay, then that makes sense. And the negative for the unassigned capital improvement plan above that in brackets.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that fits into the puzzle.
Then that down there looks like it should all be adding up, and it's not adding up to me.
It does if you take the total expenditures, it's part of it. We use 301,000 out of the unassigned reserves this year to balance. So you have if you go up a little bit to total expenditures of 484, you have to subtract that 301,000 out of your reserves to get to that 4 number, I believe. So that I can try to make that more clear, but
Just confusing to look at that section down there because it doesn't all seem to work. But I'm still confused. If we just look at the column that says, and I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to like tangle us up here for a minute because I really want to understand this and I'm very confused by it. If you look at fiscal, the column fiscal 2024 adopted, and you look down towards the bottom, Paul, you're saying that the projected ending fund balance is 3,026,899, correct?
yes,
I'm going to say $3 million. Okay. And 75% of that is the emergency reserve, correct?
yes, that's set it.
But when I do that math, I come with 2250, and down at the bottom, it says assigned emergency reserves, $756,000.
So don't forget that was based on last year's ending balance. And so if you go to the right column under 2025,
Yeah.
take the projected end of 2024 and then you recalculate it to what you have left under that formula. So you're sort of always pulling at the end of the prior year to identify what your reserves actually are or unassigned and creating it that way. So it's a little quirky to look at it just this way, but that's what it's doing. And you answer that question when you're done with the budget. We identify what we actually finalize at the end of the process. Say your 2025 budget's going to be not pull from, it's going to have a balance of X number of dollars. Then you recalculate the positions of those money. So that's what's in the adopted budget was what we finished last year with. So if you're looking at 2024, that's what was decided based on the $3 million.
Okay, well, no matter how we slice it, I'm not saying, the last line says assigned emergency reserves.
Yeah.
That amount should be 75% of a big fat number, and it's only in the current year, $756,000, and next year it's projected to be a little over 600,000. I mean, I know this budget has a negative.
So the assigned emergency reserves is 25%. The assigned non-emergency reserve is 75%. That's how you split it.
No, the emergency reserves are 75%. Pull up the ordinance from last year. Brad, can you step in here? our emergency reserves are 75%, right? Am I misunderstanding this? If you
I-
look at,
I'd have to look it up too.
okay, I'm looking at,
Possible, we flipped it, but I'll double check it.
because
But for,
I'm looking at the ordinance we passed last year, the budget, and it says, section 4, the budget for fiscal 2023-24 shall assign 75% of the unassigned fund balance to the assigned fund balance for emergency response expenditures to an emergency. That's 75% of that number, not 25%. Our emergency
they're
reserves.
flipped.
Okay, so these numbers are back, okay, I was staring at this and thinking this, our emergency reserves are a whole hell of a lot more than $600,000.
Yeah, I see it now. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Can we get that fixed on the next version? Thank you. Okay, that was one of my big questions. I'm glad we got that. Did you guys notice that? Am I the only one?
It did seem quite low.
Yeah, okay, good. So, okay. Fund balance. And then, so our job here tonight, Chris, is to figure out the $637,000 difference. I mean, if we could wave a magic wand and we could come up with 637, then you would get what you're asking for, all of your asks by department. And now we've got to figure all this out.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Those were my questions before we start talking about, and this is all based on 9.5, by the way. So, okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into the department by department.
If we could, if it's all right, can we, jumping into departments, can we jump into police first? So we can
Sure.
get this guy out of here and on vacation.
Jump on down to police. Yeah. Is your mic on?
I'm sorry. So a couple of years ago, we never had an emergency reserve before. I don't know if you're aware of that. I brought to the commission the idea of doing it, and we talked about different ways and and Paul guided us through it. Valerie helped us at the time, and we came up with a percentage like we were just talking about. The first year it was 50%. And the target was always to achieve 100% emergency reserve based on your current fiscal year budget. So that's always kind of like what you're aiming at. And we said, let's take our first step was 50%, and we did it. Then last year we did 75%, which we just clarified. It's my desire, and we're not going to vote on this now, for it to be 100% in the fiscal 2025 budget. That the ordinance would say we have an emergency reserve that is equal to 100% of the current fiscal year budget. And Paul, can we kind of all keep an eye on that? And do you think that's a reasonable expectation this year?
Depends on the asks. Without the asks, you
Right.
could set your millage rate to accomplish that.
But even if we had all the asks in there right now, it's still on paper, it's achievable, but we would just have to look and see how much we're comfortable assigning.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Okay. So I'm just letting you guys know, heading into this, I would like this year to be the year that we achieve 100% emergency reserve budget.
Be pretty close. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
We got to be getting up there. We're close.
So just a couple things on the police budget. As I mentioned in the email, we pulled those reimbursable uncontrollable expenses out, which are the off duties, as well as the reimbursable overtime for the task force member and the task force member's vehicle rental. So that's going to make the police budget a lot cleaner and a lot easier to manage. The monthly financials are going to show a true picture of how we're doing, rather than, for example, right now, it looks like we're over on paper, but we're not actually when you factor those things in. The two biggest asks for the police department, or I should say the two biggest categories. The first one is in part-time labor, which is on page or tab 13 if you're in the spreadsheet. Tab 13 if you're in the spreadsheet, P13.
I'm not. I'm in the PDF and we use object codes. Can you just tell me what the object code is when you, I mean, if you say tabs for the rest of them, if you could just give an object code, 13, thank you.
Yep. Okay. The asks are 2 new patrol positions, part-time. 2 new traffic positions. This is the budget function for the extra traffic patrol or extra traffic enforcement that the commission had asked for. And then 2 new detectives. And I wanted to explain this just briefly why we are asking for these. The current MOU the current mutual aid memorandum of understanding agreement that's floating around could possibly end up being such that we have to pay for mutual aid that we receive in. So if, for example, we have to use Miami-Dade traffic homicide, the way it's written, it could possibly mean that we would actually have to pay those salaries for while they're, or pay for those labor dollars while they're working for us. That's not set in stone. That's just discussions, but I wanted to walk into the budget a little bit prepared for that. The reason we are asking for these additional positions, the four in addition to the two that you have, is so that we can start to have some of our internal resources. These are resources that we can use for regular police duties. However, if we have the two detectives, for example, that may help us avoid some of those situations where we have to call in mutual aid.
On that point, do we know when we'll have an understanding of that? Or approximately when?
That-
Or if we ever will?
The,
Sorry, chief.
the MOU is going to change. I know that the meeting that, myself and the attorney, were in, Brad, it was pending, they're presenting it for their budget cycle, so it was kind of going through. It all kind of spiraled out from the mutual aid agreement with the county and Miami Beach over $1 million. It wasn't paid back, so they were in the whole $1 million. So that now they're looking at all of their mutual aid and like billable hours back to what they would have to reimburse. They were pushing back and forth on, okay, well, this may be covered. The only thing that we could get rock solid was bomb squad, because those are regional territory rights and they would have to provide those. Outside of that, right now, our mutual aid is any sexual battery cases, traffic homicide cases, and homicide cases, anything in the canal with the water, we would rely on Miami-Dade to assist us on those. But for instance, like just the traffic homicide we had, that was 8 of their detectives, one being a sergeant, one being a lieutenant, 2 drone units, 2 crime scene units, their ME units, them going to the autopsy, the background, the follow-up, the billable hours on just that one THI would have been astronomical for our budget to reimburse for.
Okay, so I guess the reason, of course, I bring it up is not to deny the question outright, just to understand what we're asking for. We're asking to add some positions to try and nip this in the bud. But we don't know at some point in the near future that might be denied. And then I guess it's never really a bad thing to have extra help, sure. But it also kind of sounds like even if we add these positions, we're still probably going to be paying for mutual aid, because I don't know that this would cover canal help or
We are
you tell me.
working on all these positions would give us, like, for instance, the 2 traffic units on top of their regular traffic enforcement duties.
Mm.
We're going to send them to all the traffic homicide schools that we're arranging for free here in the cabin. So they would be able to handle all of our traffic homicides within the village, God forbid, hopefully none. We have the 2 detectives right now. They're pretty much working almost full-time officers for free as reserves, between internal affairs and, follow up with any burglaries, thefts, sexual batteries. We've been handling all of it just because of the county hasn't been able to send units for certain things anyway. So if we had those as a paid position, it would make it a little bit easier, because some of the complaints that we're getting back from the residents is it's taken me 3 to 4 weeks to hear back from a detective. Well, those 2 reserve detectives are working probably 8 or 9 cases each, and that's not their full-time job. They're working their full-time job, trying to run over here in between to handle cases and do neighborhood canvases and follow up, so that it doesn't affect our patrol operations. So we would be able to pretty much, talking with our detectives that we have with these positions, we would be able to handle everything except a bomb call type situation.
we don't pay for
Yeah,
that.
we can't have a bomb squad,
Right.
but we're even working on some routes for us to service our own canals. But homicides, all that, we would be able to handle all those in-house.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
So can you quantify for us in the past number of years, and how long have you been here? 3, 4 years?
About 3 years. Yes.
Or maybe prior to that, can you quantify for us how many hours the village has had to use its MOU to get this for these kinds of functions?
We call them out for any death investigation. So anytime
any-
a death investigation. So if they come out, if we don't have a medical doctor right away to tell us that it was a medical death, a hospice or something like that, then we have to go the route that it is a homicide. So we've never actually collected the hours because it's always been a mutual aid, us asking the county per statute, hey, can you guys help us out? It's beyond our scope.
How many deaths in the past 3 years have there
I-
been that are?
I
that-
don't have the exact numbers, but I could get that together. I know last year, this is just a guesstimation that I can recall 5 to 9 that we've had.
So deaths are one thing. What else would fall under?
I know that we worked 2 homicides. They classified them more county for us, in the canals, but both of those were investigated as homicides. So, due to the
Those were the bodies that floated down the canal.
correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get an understanding of how big how great our exposure is if this were to pass. It sounds all to me, it sounds it's very ambiguous because we don't know if it's going to happen. If it does happen, we don't know when in the fiscal year it's going to happen. Our fiscal starts October 1. Brad, do we have any indication when this might happen?
So the amended MOU was up, I think, two county commission meetings ago, if I remember correctly.
Sure.
It got pulled at the last minute. There was a very spirited meeting with the commissioner that was pushing for that amendment and the Miami-Dade Chiefs Association, which I sat in on that meeting virtually. And he's kind of backtracked on certain things, but still insisted that it was going forward. And the reason why they were pushing it to go forward was because they understood it was budget season for everyone. But it ultimately got pulled from the agenda. I don't know when it's going to be heard again. But I mean, the chief is correct. This is really all sparked because of the relationship between Miami Beach and Miami-Dade County PD.
And Miami Beach is big and
Well,
has a
and I
lot
think
of stuff.
what it was is when they had their spring breaks, when they have all their events,
I can imagine.
they're using Miami-Dade and the bill was astronomical and it was all under mutual aid.
So we don't know if it's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen. It might be in this fiscal year. It's going to be, I can't imagine it would all get done by October 1. So it might at some point happen. We don't know when, and we don't have any way to sort of quantify what our exposure would have been in past years. So it's hard for me to say, these are all part-time positions. How many hours?
It would be 20 hours
20 hours per week.
per week.
So we're looking at the traffic. Let me just start by saying, guys, I'm 100% in support of the traffic. So that's kind of like for me, yes, let's do that. But the 2 extra patrol positions and the 2 extra detective positions, it's hard for me to support that when I can't see why.
I would say the detective positions for sure would be 100% needed. Just for instance, our last 2 sexual batteries on juveniles, we had 2 within the last year that we investigated. The county didn't even come out. They were like, no, there's some investigative things in it, but it wasn't good enough of a crime for them to investigate. One of them, we had to get their director involved, back and forth, but then you have you have a juvenile sitting in a hospital that was just molested and there's nothing because our MOU says they're going to work it. So us being able to have the detectives available to be on call to come out and help in that effort, just on those 2 cases alone would have been more effective that we could handle it. We don't have to depend on those.
Couple of questions then. You said they're on call and you would call them. So if we had these 2 detectives, for example, of the 3 things on the list, because the traffic, you're going to schedule them. That's like a hard scheduled. I mean, I know it's not the same all the time. You're going to adjust them, you said. But are the detectives on call? If you didn't call them, would we not spend that money? It would be budgeted and then not spent? Or are you guaranteeing these people 20 hours a week, even if there's no crimes for them to investigate?
What we would have them do is we cross certify them both in internal affairs. One is already certified in internal affairs and it would open up outside which I have not seen since I've been here, a lack of cases for us to properly investigate. Have they been properly investigated? We don't have the manpower,
heard
or
you say
personnel
properly.
for
That
it
was
to
very clear.
do real follow-ups on it.
Okay.
But, we could launch into more proactive investigate. We could do what like the city of Miami does. They do proactive internal affairs investigation where they go and look at things to see if there's things that were missing. They can launch, let's say we're getting hit with a lot of burglaries in a certain area. They could launch proactive and do like undercover in that area. They could
Okay.
try
So
to.
you could keep them busy.
Yes, sir.
But if
by
you
far.
didn't need them, would you be required if you had these two detectives, would you be required to give them 20 hours times 52 weeks a year of work? Or could it be that you would use them less and not really spend this money?
I believe it could be, I don't, I would have to refer to the fair
I mean,
standard
is it
labor
something you
laws
guys
on
are
that.
planning to spend like a hard expense, 20 hours a week?
Yeah, it in theory could be less. However, the current workload and the expected workload is such that we would use.
You would be using them.
the
Okay.
hours.
And my other question is there a reason why you're asking for them in pairs? Do these people work together? You're asking for two, two, and two.
Because whenever, for traffic, it's kind of critical for the two, because if you're on a traffic stop, you're gonna be pulling from the zone every time for backup if they get an arrest, if they do a transport. So it's always safer, on the traffic aspect to work in twos.
And the idea is to not impact the other officers on
Correct.
duty, to let them continue being the cops on the street and these two traffic officers assist each other.
Yes, sir.
Got that. That makes
And
sense. What about the other
For the
two?
detectives, the reason I asked for two of them is, for instance, our internal affairs detective is out for this week. We have a complaint that came in and we have no one, I had to scramble, okay, who's certified, who has this, who has that, to try to investigate it. So having two always gives you a fallback, or if their caseloads are, come in and they have, we had 3 burglaries back to back. Hey, this week you handle these two, I'll take this one, and they break up the caseload. So it's kind of
Okay.
fair and available.
But you have one detective now or two?
Right now, it's, we have 2 reserve detectives, but they're getting to the point of exhaustion because they have full-time jobs, so we're
Understood.
calling them and.
So you have
they-
2 reserves now, and that would not change. You would keep your 2 reserves and have 2 part-timers on staff.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then the patrol positions.
The patrol positions is due to the increase in what we're seeing with certain aspects of the burglaries, or with the shift in the overtime that we've had to pull, because we are very, very, very behind in what training we need for the department. It's going to take a long, probably 6 months to a year for us to achieve the level of training that we're truly required to have. For instance, every officer, reserve or full-time or part-time, have to go to active shooter training. Well, they only budgeted for a certain amount the last time, and we only sent a certain amount, but that's not what the mandate from the governor's office was. After Stone Douglas, was every officer will be trained, and that's annually trained also. We also have to make sure they go through the proper firearms training every year, twice a year. So there's a list of things that we're gonna have to start pulling some of the regular units off to handle us getting back to the level of being a professional agency and having the training that was neglected. So those 2 positions are gonna really help us to not force a lot of overtime and to keep us in that range of the regular budget. It gives us assistance.
Okay, and this is all in addition, Chris, to what you marked in red for us, which is the 3 full-time officers you're saying don't touch.
Correct.
That's separate. Okay. Those are all my questions. I'm anxious to hear what you guys have to ask.
So, jumped out ahead of me on the 2 position thing. I do remember I was talking about the traffic one, so I was curious about why 2 patrol, why 2 detectives. Maybe, Chief, we're talking a little bit about like cross certification and certifying certain officers in certain roles and have them serving in kind of multiple different roles, I suppose. I imagine they need the certifications in order to do that. But is there anything that is stopping you from selecting a few of our officers now and saying, let's have them certify and study and train to get the detective rank? So they could serve in that dual role. I mean, notwithstanding the fact that you've got a lot to do, you're backed up on training, I understand those things. But what we're saying is we bring in these 2 detectives and we can cross certify them to do some other things so they can help us out in other aspects. Is there a possibility that we could select some of our folks that we have here now to train them and get them certified in that position to then help? Maybe we've got 2 reserve detectives now. Maybe one of them can train up and get that certification, and maybe now we have 3 reserve detectives, and that kind of maybe not solves the problem that you're saying that we're experiencing, but maybe pushes in the right direction without going full on with 2 additional new ones.
Yes,
Is that a possibility?
The problem with that is we already started to certify some of the road units in crossed areas. We're sending one of the corporals to detective school. And we're trying to get that so they have the working knowledge to get there. But the problem that you're going to run into is right now we're running a 2-man shift, which is the minimum standard by state law for a chief to make sure that there's 2 out at a time. For instance, we had the case the other day And it takes those officers out of the role to go find a suspect in Miami that was hiding from us for a felony arrest. Well, once we start playing and following up on the detective roles, that's a lot of manpower and hours, and it's not going to have the proactive patrol. We could do it, and they could go out there and run the whole week doing interviews and follow-ups and all that, but then you're not going to have the proactive patrol for regular patrol. So the possibility would be the burglaries increase. But right now, we're even trying, when we notice we do heavy traffic, then we get burglaries on the east side, or we get thefts on the other areas. So taking away the patrol officers from the high visibility patrol will, it's possible, we could do it, but it's going to take away from that proactive patrolling to reduce other crimes.
So it's like a capacity issue. is
Yes,
what
sir.
you're saying. Okay. Okay. One other question that I had about the traffic positions, the line item here, 2 new traffic positions. I was going to give you a number, but that probably wouldn't help. So the 2 new traffic position, this is a position that we talked about several months ago when you came in, you mentioned that it would be helpful to have those.
Yes, sir.
I remember when we first had the discussions, I think the line item or the projection was far more than this. It was over 100,000, I think. I don't remember the exact number. It was way higher than 47,000. So what I'm curious about is what's the difference? Like, why are we seeing such a drop off from what we were projected at to what we're looking at now?
I can jump in on that.
Okay.
We've been able to hone the idea a little bit more. We were originally looking at, I think it was 4 traffic. It would have been more than part-time to address the concerns in the concerned areas. We were able to pare that back to just the 2 additional officers for 20 hours.
So is this,
I thought it was 2. Always, I thought it was 2.
I think part of the factors were back at that time, we did not have any car. We were pretty much skeleton cars, so we had to cycle in adding fleet to it. But with the assistance of Mikasuki with their donation has given us the ability to not have to add in the cars and the radars because they gave those to us as donations. So those dropped off of that overall what we would require to have the traffic units launched.
so let me just ask you, in your opinion, when you, sorry to keep holding you to what you said that one meeting, you kind of put on the spot, but it was, what you mentioned to us as you think would help. In your opinion, from what you asked for that day and what we proposed versus what we have here, is it the same level of service? Is this what you think achieves that purpose from when we talked about it the first time?
Yes, sir. I think with the 2 traffic units now, especially that we don't have to pay for those vehicles for that. We have the extra resource of Mikasuki, the extra radars from Mikasuki. It would be great. I think we're trying to ask for 2 lasers because that gives us a little bit more the ability to write more effective speeding tickets.
Yep.
But we would be able to provide the traffic at a higher level than what we have now because that would be their sole direction and purpose. They would go out there, they would focus on trouble areas, the complaints that come in. We could really target those areas and really kind of reduce down what we're seeing in traffic. And knock on wood, I think we wouldn't see, I don't want to say it. I don't want to jinx it.
Nearly as much. And that's fine. I
Hold you to it.
Yeah.
I just want to be certain from your perspective in the position that you are in now,
Yes, sir.
because your position has changed since the first time. So from the position in your perspective now, that this would achieve that purpose. If that's what you're saying, that's great.
Yes,
I
sir.
just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Thanks, sir.
Great. Thanks, Chief.
Chief, first off, let me say I'm fully in support of the traffic. It's needed. We see the speeders. It's ramped up again as the summer months. People are out of school, I think, and it's ramped back up. The patrol, or first, let me start with the MOU. I understand that there might be a breakdown. The county might, start charging us. Is there a potential for moving into another municipality, like say our northern neighbor, North Miami, enter an MOU with them and use their detectives? Is that a possibility?
We could explore that. I guess the MOU jurisdictionally, they could. It depends on what their resource levels are. I've looked at some other things, state resources and whatnot, on other ways that we could. But for instance, the traffic fatality that we had, we kept calling the county. And for a long time, they didn't answer the phone. We tried to get the Florida Highway Patrol to come help us and assist with working it. And they said, yeah, not a problem. We'll come out, but it's going to be about a 6-hour response because we got 3 ahead of you. So When it comes down to the other jurisdictions, I don't know what their staffing levels are and what their readiness for availability. I know we asked like North Miami for crime scene on our felonies to come out. Right now, sometimes they can, sometimes they can't, sometimes it's, the wait is hours. Like those detectives positions, they could also be crime scene, they could do all the crime scene process. So it would kind of relieve that, but I could explore into other agencies around to see what their availability and resources would be for a call out for us.
So just to qualify that from to the chief's point, is generally what mutual aid agreements say is they'll provide assistance under whatever those conditions are, but it's pending that they have the resources to do it at the time you make the request. So it's very rare you're going to get it. I mean, not rare. I've never seen a mutual aid agreement where they guarantee that you're going to come out unless you have a situation where you have another agency that you're going to contract with to do your homicide investigations or certain things, and then there's the cost involved generally.
And my second question would be if something like that couldn't work out, is there a potential to combine the detective and the patrol positions into just two officers who could be our detectives, and when they're not running cases, they could boost up our patrol? Is that a possibility?
We could explore that right now with the caseload of what the detectives have. They wouldn't be on the road patrolling at all. The caseload is we're up there on just between the criminal cases coming in, following up on the burglaries, the thefts, the internal affairs, trying to go back and look into other issues. It would be a while before they would be on the road to patrol.
Can I tag onto your question? Is there any benefit to making, instead of having two patrols and two detectives, having one in each category, but having them be full-time? I know there's additional expense when they become full-time because then it impacts other things, but is there any additional benefit in terms of the service level to add one full-time detective, one full-time patrol officer, or maybe just one or the other? But instead of two part-timers, one full-time.
I think cost wise, it would be cheaper for the village because it's 2020, but that would be paying pretty much a full-time, but without all the benefits and
Right, I
all the
understand.
other
But is there any
extra package.
difference in the service level
I-
that we would get having our own an additional full-time detective instead of two part-timers? Who are working other places and you call them, they may not be available, you know.
The benefit we're having too is when one's not available, we would be able to have a second one and they could rotate, they could go on call for weeks at a time, like this is your week, next week is, so we could, with the two, it gives us that flexibility of having the backup constantly, the support. At least maybe on the patrol position, one full-time may be more beneficial for the village in that aspect. That would definitely assist us there. But for the detectives, I would push for the two
Okay.
part-time.
And then I'm going to ask a follow-up to Paul. Sorry, caught you off guard. So Paul, if just, and we're not going to hold you to a number here, but if we look at this number for two part-time patrol positions budgeted at we'll call it $48,000 for the year based on an hourly rate. If that became one full-time person, what kind of impact would that make on the village if that was one full-time person with the other benefits and things we have to provide?
Yeah, I use about a 35% overhead
So that 40,
on top of the hours. So you got both, you add them both together and then probably another 35%. But I think the hourly rate is also artificially low in a part-time person. It looks like it to me.
if we take 47,840 times 2 times 1.35, that's $130,000.
Sounds about right.
But we aren't paying our full-time officers that much.
When you add up all the fringes,
So that would, it would add jump to
I
that.
can pull it up and,
Okay.
but it's,
Um,
that's a good walking around number.
okay, so we go from, I'm gonna call it 100 to 130, but you're saying that the service level might increase there because it's another full-time person instead of two part-timers.
Yes, sir, for the.
Okay.
Just to reiterate on that, the purpose of one of the purposes of having two detectives is when Detective A is on vacation, we still have Detective B, and that's the issue that we're currently running into. Correct.
it's not Detective A and B, it's, we already have A, we're adding B and C.
Correct.
And they're all part-timers.
With the reserve,
Mm,
ones we have right now are reserves.
Right.
So we call them, for the most part, they'll drop what they're doing and they try to come out here in a timely manner, but there's times right now where a captain or a corporal or even myself have responded to go to the hospital to start interviewing the victims because we
Mhm.
just don't have a detective available.
Understood. Okay.
The
And
reserves, chief, we require 20 hours a month?
The reserves are 24 hours a month. But the detectives, they're putting a lot more than that in right now. So it's kind of hard to schedule them because I can't schedule just two of them for that.
so how many do you have now? How many are reserved? We'll call them reserve detectives. How many do you have now?
Technically three, but one
Three.
is just solely for backgrounds.
Gotcha. So if you remove that one, you have two now. So we're talking about going from two reserve detectives that you're getting 24 hours a month from, a month, and adding two detectives that you're getting 20 hours a week for
Yes, sir.
each.
Yes, sir.
That seems like a huge increase in manpower. Okay.
It's the 24 is what our policy requires them to work.
Mhm.
What they're really working right now, for instance, Detective Martinez, he was here 6 days in a row working, doing canvases and following up on a video and all that. So he probably put in close to 60 to 70 hours just that one week. So they're only required 24 for the month, but they're working a lot more than
We're
that.
not paying them by the
And we're not
hour.
paying them at all.
Those are all my questions. Be looking here from for us now. Oh.
Can I have a question for you? So I'm just trying to follow. Thank you. All the questions were great and answer a lot of mine as well. You have listed part-time officers 3 for the adopted budget of 2024 was $104,000 and the proposed budget is 71,760. Why are we decreasing here?
Which, sorry,
That's a great question. I don't have an answer
To
to.
look on object code 13.000. Good call, Vero.
Yeah, I just want to understand what is it that we're dropping? You have part-time officers 3 and the adopted be in 2024, $104,000. And the
the-
proposed 71, yeah.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. We have 5 part-time positions, 2 or 3 are patrol officers, and we because we adjusted the command staff to have an administrative assistant helping us. 2 of those positions are captain, one on patrol and one of investigations, running the patrol operation and one in the investigation operations.
So this sort of adjustment and
So confused.
cost reflects your current staff.
I think this might be an error on the budget itself. What we're looking at, chief, is a little bit different. We had 104.7 budgeted for or adopted for 24. And then we're only proposing 71. So that looks like a budget error. I'll have to dig into that.
It's right out of the salary schedule, so it's grabbing live data. So
Yeah.
there must be. the
There's
shifts
something
it's talking
funky in the
about.
budget.
Yeah, I just wrote, I'll make a note why that is, but I can see it's pulling directly out of the live salary.
Okay. Okay.
So it's doing its job mathematically, but it's not really clear what's different.
I just showed it to him I just showed him what we're looking at and he has an explanation.
The last year we had 5 part-time officers, police officers. This year it's the 3 part-time police officers and the 2 part-time captains, because that gets rid of all the benefits on what the captains would have got to create the administrative assistant position. So we saving the budget on the overall package side and then breaking up those responsibilities.
All right, I'll make a note of that in the
So
worksheet.
it is it's real that this is a reflection of the current stuff you propose for next year.
So then to Vero's point, the previous page, object code 12.000, Chris, there's a significant increase. Is that adding in those 2 officers over here? Because over here, it says police officers 10. Last year, the budget was 439. This year, it's 687. Is this the 2 extra people were included over there?
It appears that that's the shift from the commanders and it drops the personnel into there. So that should be why that one
That's the
increase,
move.
correct?
Did you catch that, Vero?
No, can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, if you go back to, are you looking, well, I don't know what you're looking at. I'm looking at the asked budget, but they're basically the
Yes, me
same.
too.
Okay, so if you look at, what we're looking at is object code 13.000 with the addition of the 6 officers.
Yes.
Go to the previous page, object code 12.000, and you're going to see police officers listed there. Chief,
Yes.
commander, police officers 10. Look at the budget for this current year, 438,567. And next
Okay.
year it's 687,995. Those are where those officers were moved, he's saying.
Okay.
That's why the increase is there and the decrease is on the page that you noticed.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Did I say that correctly?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay.
So,
I think we better get clarification on that.
so Chief, would we, because it says your commander 00, would we be filling those commander positions?
No, we have, so right now that we broke it down to the chief, a full-time captain running all the administration, the accreditation assistants, everything, and then 2 part-time captains that will help with, one, to oversee all of the investigations so that we don't have any more issues with the transparency issues and all. It's a clear-cut path on that side. And then one doing the patrol operations and overseeing traffic and making sure the reports are coming in, the approvals and all that.
Where are they on here? Are they included? Are they
They're
lumped
grouped in
with
the
10
10
police
police
officers? Okay. It might be, I think it would be very good for us to see that breakdown. So
Make a
we
note,
see you,
we'll
chief,
spell it
we
out.
see captain, if they're part-time, captain, part-time. And then officers, to me, sounds like, police officers, I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know all the titles properly, but
Yes.
what do you call a regular officer on the street?
It's police officer.
Police officer. Yeah, so it sounds like that would be chief 1,
Yes, sir.
part-time captain 2, police officers 8. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir. There, I don't know, well, the previous thing, we may be changing some of those officers to a different thing.
Got
depending
it,
on
but it's
contractual.
that's how the numbers break
Correct.
down.
Yes, sir.
And that's what Vero caught
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so that helps. I mean, I completely understand. It seems to me you're catching up to the staff you actually need. Everything that you kind of provided as a reason why you need 2 patrol position, 2 traffic position, 2 detectives. It seems it's we're overdue to sort of make that jump. I was going to ask how this relates to the following page, and I'm looking at the ask budget in a PowerPoint sort of printout. 14,000 where it talks about overtime. So having now this additional positions, would that impact our overtime? I see that it's still budgeted for 50.
The overtime, we always have to have a bank reserve if we have a hurricane come up, if we have like the traffic fatality where we're gonna have to pull additional resources in, special events, any types of situations like that, regular road coverage if somebody calls out sick. Hopefully with those positions, it would reduce our need for some overtime, but that's one of those areas where you can't know 100% until times are going. So to decrease that could cause an overage later on.
So let me ask you on a different way. So until June 30th, we spent $33,000 of overtime in this fiscal. What sort of opportunities I'm trying to understand, like what sort of events were included in this $33,000 of overtime?
I can jump in, and then I believe a lot of this overtime is due to task force overtime.
Correct. The task force is allotted for reimbursement, certain amounts of overtime when they travel to and from other countries or out and about for their investigations. But most of that's reimbursable through the federal system.
Okay, but
So
so you don't think then having the 3 different positions at a part-time added on the previous page we just spoke about would reduce the need of mimicking the $50,000 from 2024 to 2025?
Yeah, I could jump in on that, Commissioner. At this point, we can't quantify, at this moment, I can't quantify how much that overtime is task force related and how much is actual police department related. That's information we can get. If the actual police department overtime that our officers are spending on disasters, storms and whatnot is not that 33,000. I will work on getting that number. But to answer your question, having the extra positions would be able to decrease that sum. To the extent I don't know at this point.
Okay.
If they're, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Chief, talking about overtime, in your current staffing model, if someone were called out sick, you would put out a position for overtime and hire for overtime to fill that sick, right? If we bring in these 2 part-time patrol officers in, could there be a potential where we wouldn't hire overtime? You would have that part-time officer fill in that position because our staffing TO is 2.
Yes,
We
sir.
just need, it could be up to that 2.
Correct. Yes, sir. That would give us the flexibility if we had a shift with 3 people, even if it was a traffic unit out and a regular patrol officer, if one of the patrol officers called out sick, we wouldn't have to be forced by mandate to call in somebody. So it would potentially reduce a lot of the call outs that we have and possibly with additional part-times, being able to flex them into different areas if we needed to, knowing that somebody has scheduled vacation or we wouldn't be forcing members, because right now, if tonight somebody calls out sick, I would have to force somebody or try to get somebody to come in to have, or myself come in to mandate the 2-man staffing by state law.
You find yourself doing that often, drafting for overtime to bring them in?
Yes, sir. A lot of it's forced overtime right now.
And you mentioned disaster overtime. Do you guys try to reimburse with FEMA when it's a declared natural disaster with the governor?
Yes, sir. Once we can, if it falls in the parameters, I don't know if they have in the past, but I believe they have. Yes.
So as far as the part-time salaries go, I think we need to make a recommendation. It sounds like the traffic positions we're in favor of.
In favor of both of them.
Yeah,
as is. Yep.
agreed. And Commissioner Amsler, if you can hear me, certainly feel
Yes.
free to jump in and tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I'm with you.
Um,
Yes.
It sounds like there's some support for the detective positions, I think. But I'd like to open that
I'll
up for
support
discussion.
one of in each category. So I'm good with both traffic, 1 patrol, 1 detective. I think that's a good step. And it's a nice compromise. It seems like we're taking a big leap here based on some things that might happen, and we don't know what the impact would be, and we don't know how much we've paid in the past. It's all very nebulous. But I believe you that you need to be beefed up. I'm personally fine with 1 in each category. I think that's a good step. And a year from now, if we see that we needed more, we can add another one at that point.
Let me ask you, Chief, very quickly, if we were to recommend that and update our budget accordingly. You talked a little bit about why you're pairing them up 2s and 2s. Does it work for you to have 1 and 1 in those positions? Is that still something you could do, or is it basically 2 or none?
With the traffic
That's a 2.
that would
Yeah,
work for
that's a
2
two.
for
We have
sure.
all agreed on.
For patrol and for
the
detective.
Patrol, 1, it would definitely assist us. We could make that work. With the detectives, with the caseloads that we have right now, I would strongly urge for 2, just because we have to, not only just the general crimes that we're investigating, we're doing true internal affairs right now, on when complaints come up, and those are time consuming and we have to go through. But I'm trying to really focus on us having a more transparent agency doing the right thing and following up with investigations and not pushing things under the rug. So staffing wise, 2 detectives would be kind of critical right now for us to be able to truly make an impact in that area.
Let me ask you this. If given the option between, let's take traffic out of this, because I think we got a thumbs up on traffic. So let's take that out of this. If you were given the choice between 1 patrol and 1 detective, or 2 detectives and 0 patrol, what would be, understanding we would like 2 of each, what would be the more preferable scenario?
Right now, I think our need is more towards detectives, just because of the caseload and trying to ensure a clear transparency in the agency. I would definitely lean towards that. The patrol would be where we really impact our overtime and having more visibility.
What if we did this, Jonathan? What if we said, not to put words in anyone's mouth, Vero, you either. What if we said, for tonight, we'll agree on 2 traffic patrol plus 2 others? and you guys go back and you have more conversations and go, okay, they agreed, because they're all the same amount of money. They're all identical amounts of money.
Yep.
And you come back to us and you can think more and say, we'll take 2 detective, we'll take 2 patrol, we'll take 1 of each, whatever you want it to be. And we just kind of go from there. And we just cut $50,000 out of the ask budget. We're $50,000 to the positive, and he's still getting 4 additional officers, and let Chris and the chief sort of figure that out, what might work best for them.
I'm definitely think I'm in support of that, being that we're only at page 2 of this budget. We have a lot of cuts to be made.
Budget's a big deal.
We can always come back at the next workshop and say, hey, we found 50,000 extra. Let's add those 2 patrols in, or 2 detective, whatever it is. But we have a lot of more pages to get to. I think that's a good compromise to
Good
start.
point. I agree. I think that's a.
Can I,
a
can I
good
ask
move.
a question? Paul, the budget for the police overall, what percentages of our entire budget? I see is it, no, the variance is 27. What percentage is police of our entire budget? And what was it on 2024 versus what's being requested on 2025?
Good question. I don't remember, but yeah, it was,
The
it
number
was a
39.
little lower than you would expect.
That's what my
Last-
point was gonna be.
Last year, I'm sorry.
ahead.
This current fiscal, we budgeted 38% of our budget goes to police.
Okay, and for 2025?
We don't know yet.
Okay, so based on the ask budget that we have in front of us,
That's really hard to say because there's a whole bunch of numbers in there that we haven't even talked about yet.
Yeah, it's about
True.
But
400,000.
here's another way to
more than-
think about it, Vero. Our revenue is up 12%. Is
yeah,
that
that's,
correct, Paul?
I was trying to make
Yeah.
that comparison between what.
At
it-
9.7, it would be about 14%. At
Okay.
9.5,
9.5,
it would
it's
be 11%.
11%. So 11% increase in budget. Okay.
All right,
Okay.
so,
So in the interest of moving along, I'm fine with that.
yeah, so for me, this is one that I would park. I'm okay with moving forward with less. I actually am in support of giving what you're requiring. As we are getting into a heavier and heavier sort of traffic situation and safety situation, I find this is an area I would not want to scratch from. So I'm in favor to everything you've asked right now in the budget. If you want to be careful and just move forward, Mag, as you suggested, with like 50 grand less, hopefully we do find it somewhere else in the budget.
Thanks, Commissioner. So let's take a look at the overall police budget. So there's really no increase in overtime and other pays. I mean, at the risk of getting into a larger discussion, I know in other pays in item number 15, it's marked in red, Chris, because we don't want to touch it. Court time. I just had a quick question, very quick. We've only spent $250 in court time so far. We have 35 budget. We want to go forward with 35. Just from your experience, is $250, is that low?
For the court overtime?
Yeah,
It does seem low.
it does seem low. Okay, because I'm just looking at it, there being a disparity there and trying to figure out.
Yes, sir. Because if they go to court, and now a lot of it's on Zoom, so it's this court system's kind of sped up, but it's still a 3-hour minimum for them to attend it. So the more tickets you write, the more cases you involve, the more arrests, the more chances of you going to court.
So if we're getting more traffic officers, there could be an increase in.
The
ticket-
more than likely there would be an increase
Okay.
in court.
That was
overtime.
my question as well, as we move into our own detectives, make our own investigations, is there more chance of us going to court more often?
There could be, they're still going to call us and even know they're investigating or not, because we would be the initial response. So all of those officers are still going to be summoned to court at some point.
Okay, so leave it as is, you would?
Yes, sir. I
That
wouldn't.
was a really bad question. Sorry, okay.
Paul, Paul, are you keeping the tally that you've done in previous years?
Not yet, no.
Okay, because
I have what you've done so
okay,
far, but
okay. Just I always like when you yell at a number and say, you now, meeting to date, you've cut $112,000.19.
Can I ask a question
that,
on the line item 40,000? You have a travel and per diem expenses, 0 to date used for 2024, but you're still asking 8,000 for next year. Can you let me know what that's about?
I can jump in on that. That's changing. Travel and per diem covers our officers when they go to, oh, I don't know, Orlando to get our traffic safety award. We have a couple classes coming up. One's down in the Keys. I believe we have something coming up in Sanibel. So up until this point, training was not prioritized. That's why we don't have any spend. Now that we have the new chief, training is prioritized and we will see those funds being used,
The ones budgeted for this year, or are you talking about next year?
both.
Oh, okay.
So you're planning still to use $8,000 in the next couple months?
Yes, ma'am. We just spent some this week. I just got back this morning from Claremont with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement up there for training and some accreditation factors there. We'll have to send 4 down to Key West for a week coming up in September. Had to send 4 to Sanibel for a week and also in both in September. So we will see that being utilized. Do most of the big training events that we have to go to, the conferences, reference to like accreditation conference. Those are typically towards more the end of the budget year because I guess the state and the agencies all kind of push that to the last resource. So it seems like it all pops up at the end, but those are on the books and pending for the members to attend.
So you're
Okay.
going to spend, how much of the $8,000 that you've not spent this year do you think you're going to spend by the end of September? You have a couple of things in September. You're gonna,
Yes, sir. We'd probably be close to the $8,000.
really?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The FBI put it in Key West, which Key West is not very cheap and per diem down there for us to stay.
I'm glad you brought that up, Vero, because in the past 3 years, we spent $1,000 in 3 years in that budget, and I
Yeah.
was kind of surprised that nothing was spent. Is there an opportunity here for us to, we got to start trimming money out of this thing. Is there an opportunity here? Because we went from 0, less than 1,000, 0, and now we're going to try 8 again. Is there an opportunity here to say, okay, let's meet somewhere in the middle at 6 or something?
I could try to get back with you and crunch the numbers on what the average cost would be for us to attend, but right. this
We could
second,
try to trim a little bit because we haven't, I mean, we're going
Yes.
from nothing to, choom, you know.
And that was my point with the 0 to that we've spent so far. And I'm all on the idea of training be a priority moving forward. It seems like it's right on hand with what you're trying to do in the department chief. So I'm all for it, but I think it's a big jump to have not spent anything to request to go to the $8,000. So I think maybe some trimming could be done. Maybe if we leave it at 6, could be a start. And then if I can also on the contingency, we have not spent anything. There's $10,000 in the contingency, and then we have animal control for 2,000. So what about that portion?
Contingency, we're going to be spending, what is our, I don't know off the top of our head, the Wi-Fi situation, is that 7?
Yes, we have about 7 with the Wi-Fi crashing in the station right now, so we had to repair that. I believe we're using some of the contingency to get our body camera system up and running.
That was my other
And,
question.
We're also looking at a contingency to, right now, we really don't have a lot of less than lethal options, so we're looking at some to de-escalate so that we have the beanbag shotguns rather than having to use lethal force and God forbid in any situation, we would have another option.
I'm sorry, say that again. I didn't understand that the part.
We're looking at using some we found Lou's Police Supply and a couple other vendors have recommended some less than lethal shotguns which shoot a beanbag round. So rather than our officers right now, they have a gun and some pepper spray. Some have tasers, but that would give them one additional tool on the shift if they get into the increase of mental health issues right now and the increase of officers engaging. This would we're trying to we're finishing the bidding system to see if we can't implement one of those tools using the contingency funds. So that way we would give another tool to the officers to intercept without having to use lethal force.
But that's in the budget
So
as a line item.
for me, that I agree with the idea of having contingency
In there.
for contingency, like the breaking of the tower of the Wi-Fi is part of a contingency budget. If there is a program in place that you guys have an idea for and a sort of an estimate for, it shouldn't be considered under contingency in my view. I would put it as part of the items, you know, and maybe another part of the budget.
And it is Vero, it's in there. If you look in 52, object code 52.
Yeah.
The beanbag shotguns
here.
are in there. Yeah, they're in there
Right.
for $4,000.
So I think for that this is another one that I just look at the 0 next to June 30, 2024 as an opportunity to make an adjustment there. And 49,000, there's $12,000 being expected to be spent in the next couple of months. And I don't know how realistic it is. I actually don't think it is. Based on what you said, it doesn't seem like it's gonna reach $12,000. So I'm okay with leaving a contingency budget that is smaller, used for contingency situations such as the Wi-Fi you explained. But if you have equipment, it should be listed on 52,000.
And it is, the one that you pointed out is there. It's itemized. So I'll support that as well, Vero. Cutting that back.
How much do we,
I mean, it's kind of hard to say. You don't want to totally slaughter a contingency budget because it kind of, my feeling is it's for like these emergencies that come up, you know, that you weren't expecting and it's within the budget. So the chief and Chris don't have to come to us and they can do it. So what is it now? 12, Vero?
12?
It's
Yeah.
12.
If you
Maybe we
cut
can.
that back to 8, I don't know.
Yes. 8, I think 8 is a good number. Again, it comes from 0 from the entire year so far. And it
Well,
might happen that, you know, I don't mind the conversation if it happens that we need to approve 5,000 extra, like it's happened in the past.
Yeah.
That you come to us, if we need to have that discussion, but every dollar seems to add up here. And I'm more in pro to give you the positions that you're asking at the beginning. So I'm hoping that we can make room somewhere else for that.
Well, the contingency is, you said 12, it's actually 10 and it's 2,000 for animal control. Chief, does Miami-Dade Animal Control charge for their services if they come out here?
This was something put in the budget by the commission. It was more related to,
PNR.
I think the general consensus was getting something in the budget for animals, and not necessarily tying it to an actual cost.
Historically, have you used that $2,000?
This is
No.
the first budget where we've had it, I believe.
I
We
thought it
have-
was a TNR. It was, the
Yes.
intent was would be a TNR thing and it had been itemized elsewhere as a TNR event and now it was here.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the things I wanted to ask about was TNR.
Yeah, so it
Leave.
was, I think this is what it went originally thought after we discussed that ordinance about animal, and I think the $2,000 were addressed to TNR. We haven't used it, so if there is no plan for it for next year, we just remove it.
Well, I
And
was going to ask Vero if I have that coming up in another department because I thought it belonged in, I have it coming up somewhere else. Don't ask me where it is now.
Yeah, so we can talk about it if you see another
Yeah.
line. I just don't think if we haven't spent it, and again, there is no
That's
plan
funny.
for it at this stage from the department of how to spend that moving forward, that shouldn't be there. Maybe we need to get in touch with the county to see how to get more support from that when it comes to TNR, but I am in favor from this entire 12,000 to leave it at 8.
Do you consider a TNR event to be something that should be in your department or should it be in another department? Because I had it up as a general comment for another department. You want to be in charge of neutering cats?
If I can jump in on that, the discussions that we had determined that animal control, I'm trying to remember, paraphrasing, was community safety. Community safety is run by the police department, which is why we put it in the police department budget. I think it was originally in Parks.
I think it was in the rec
thing.
center budget
Yeah,
today.
and it didn't make sense there. It made more sense in police.
Well, I would like to keep a TNR, I would like to conduct a TNR event and I don't have any idea where that $2,000 figure came from. I think we may have picked it up from the rec center budget from before, but I'm in favor of keeping that and dropping.
Somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
Vero, are you saying drop this $12,000 code to 8,000 or dropping the contingency from 10 to 8 and leaving the 2 for animal control?
If it's gonna
It
be.
seems like
somewhere- If it's gonna be somewhere else and there is a plan for it, I'm okay with leaving the 2,000 somewhere else. I just,
We might,
doesn't seem like we have a plan or it was even in the radar to be used for 2025. So I would just leave a contingency for the police of 8,000.
we might be able to find that in the two are the larger ask items, the supplies 52 and education 55. There's some large increases there that we might be able to look at where we can find that money.
We're saying cut animal control, it's a TNR bet, cut TNR $2,000 altogether. We'll have a conversation about it elsewhere
Yeah.
and drop the 10,000 to 8,000.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Are those all your police items? Because I have a couple of quick police things, if I may, and other items.
No, my focus, I was looking at some of the ones that we can change. We can't change those. So my next was the larger items, the supplies and the education's one.
I have questions about 52 and 55, and then I have another general question. Can I jump in there?
Yeah, yeah, 52. So supplies.
You and I were having a conversation about something else not too long ago, and you mentioned to me the body cams, because a couple of budgets ago, I asked for body cams, and I was told no because of the storage fees and the liability for storing the and you explained that we got free body cams. So where are body cams in here for whatever else you need? Because you just mentioned them, I think, as part of something else. Where are body cams in? What do you need to make those body cams work? And for storage and all of that, because I would very much like to have those activated. Did you guys know we have body cams? We got body cams for free from Palm Beach, you told me? Gulfstream. So
You might,
your mic on?
Did it die?
it is not.
There are batteries on the top shelf.
He could come sit up here. I mean,
Yeah, that's, you
That's
might as
true.
well.
Yeah. Take your seat, chief.
so,
Is this under 52?
well, it's not anywhere.
Well, we're in that section.
We're in that kind of area. 'Cause
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
questions about 52, but my first
Yes.
thing, Vero, was the fact that the chief told me recently that they got body cams for free, which is exciting. I had been told by previous police chiefs that we could not use them for a number of reasons. I'm
Original
very much,
video is one you mentioned, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm very much a proponent of having them, not just for resident safety, but also to protect our officers, because I'm going to guess the footage that you get from those things is as often beneficial to the officer as it is to residents. Or it measures out on both sides. So what do you need to make that happen?
Yes, sir. For the storage and the agreement fee with the Wolfcam company that we got the body cameras is approximately about $5,000 a year. And that would cover the server, them storing it for us, holding it for us. As long as the equipment themselves, we don't have any failures, everything else was provided by Gulfstream, the server system. Will be initial fee that we're looking at now in the contingency aspect for Loxio, which is our IT company, to get the server up and running. But outside of the initial startup fee, it'll just be approximately a $5,000 fee yearly for all the storage and maintenance.
And you're anticipating using your fiscal 24 contingency to make that happen by the end of September?
Yes, sir. We're hoping IT came and picked up the server yesterday.
So then you'll need, if I understood what you just said, you're still going to need $5,000 in this budget because you're going to need $5,000 a year for the storage.
Yes, sir.
Is that in here? And I didn't see it because I looked specifically for it and I don't see it anywhere.
It's not in here.
Okay, we need, guys, I'm in total favor of activating our free equipment and getting that ball rolling. And do you have enough do officers get one that they take home with them and they keep it as theirs, or do they check it out when they arrive for duty?
No, sir. It would be checked out. We got about 13 of them. So
You have enough?
yes, sir. We would have enough for possibly the full-time personnel to have a take-home one to have all the time. And then we would have a few for the reserve officers to check out per shift.
Okay, so I'm in favor of adding $5,000 wherever it should go in here to make that happen. But I think we're going to have a bigger I want to have a bigger conversation about object code 52, if that's where you think that would go. Is that where it would go, Chris?
Software subscription.
So we didn't pay for the body cameras. We just need to pay for the storage, you said?
Yes, ma'am. The service fee and storage through Wolfcam.
Yeah.
Wolfcam is the name of the name of the product. Okay.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that, certainly. We might be able to find some space in these next two items. So getting onto the subject of 52, share my laptop if you like, Chief. So 52 is our supplies. This is a pretty large increase. We're going up from adopted 159 to 255.
$95,398.
So I know we've talked a little bit about, prior to this meeting, there was some discussion about what this was for. Can you give us just an overview? Because there's a lot here, so maybe we can get a quick overview.
Yeah. Um, the short version of the story, I had the pleasure of attending our mass casualty active shooter training. And have also been spending some time having conversations with our new command staff about the state of our current equipment. We are not currently equipped to handle any sort of major incident. We don't have enough body shields. We don't have enough vests. We don't have ballistic helmets. The first aid kits that our officers are using are the off-the-shelf Walgreens kind that are great for paper cuts. We don't have any tools to be able to breach. If there's a medical emergency, elderly fall, we have no way of getting in. Going through that training and having the conversations with those trainers as well as the command staff here, these are all things that we do need to be able to do. The officers need to be able to do the jobs effectively. With that said, this ask is outfitting all the vehicles, all the officers with everything that we need. These are things that could be used or that could be obtained through the task force, the forfeitures. What I would recommend with these asks, we'll chat with the chief to find out what the minimum is to get at least 1 or 2 sets of each of these equipment for each shift. So we have the tools that we need. And then we can start looking at using those seizure funds for everything else.
Are
That
we,
that was gonna be my question, Chris, on this list. Cause it says, I don't know, Halligan entry tools. Is it 1, 2, need like bolt cutters? I think it's the amounts that are being asked. Is it to equip our entire police force? And is it the amounts that are shortfall to do that? So I think it would be good to have a better understanding as to, would this put us up to speed with everybody having the equipment needed? Is this staff in, or giving staff at least half of it? That would be my question.
Yeah, if we could, if you want to just run down the list, chief, and I'll make notes on quantity.
I believe these are priced out right now as sets of 5. If we dropped it down to 2 sets each, that would give us enough to kind of rotate in between shifts. One of the biggest, like for the Halligan, the bolt cutters, the sledgehammer, for instance, in the Uvalde shooting, sorry if I pronounced it wrong, in Texas, they just indicted and arrested the chief and the officer in that response. Their reasoning of why there was a lack of response or the delay in response was the door was locked and they couldn't get in, and that's why the children were killed. Well, they were both arrested for those actions of not getting in there. So we want to make sure we have the tools, one, to get in there to stop any active shooters in a more rapid manner. But even if it's a slip and fall, for the most part, the fire department will help us with some, but if it's an active shoot or active threat going on, they're not going to go up there to gain entry for us at that time.
What's the matter there, Vice Mayor? No interest in that?
We definitely will not do that. We'll hand the tools to you and you can do it.
so I guess 2 kind of paths are being proposed here. One, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, the idea is you could go back and you could look at these and find out what of this is obtainable through the seizure funds.
This is all obtainable through seizure funds.
All of this could be,
So we can wipe all this?
I'll get corrected here.
Hold on, you got to be careful, okay? Because one of the provisions when using shared funds is that you can't supplant, you can't use it to supplant your budget. So, and I think we've talked about this before. They don't look at it in a microeconomic sense. They look at it in a macroeconomic sense. So what that means is if you're going to reduce the budget, the overall budget, with the anticipation of bringing that budget back up to number by using the seized funds, you're supplanting. So what I'm suggesting is that the police budget as a whole, from a macro sense, it can certainly not be less than it was in this fiscal year.
Okay, I don't know that we're proposing doing that, but
Yeah.
what if we were to just say publicly,
I'm just,
we're saying publicly, we're not obligated, or we're not in a position right now to do this, so let's defer it for a later time. Then we're not supplanting the budget.
well, I understand, and just, so technically, you're not supposed to budget seized funds. But you can, again, if you look at it from the sense that we're not reducing the department's budget in anticipation of using
Yes.
these shared funds,
We're not reducing the budget
You
and
can do
we're-
that.
we don't have any of these things already. It's not like we're adding on to something we already have. Yeah, I have, just for the record, I have no interest in spending any money on any of these things.
There we go. So, if we were to, and now, let's not close the door on that one, but let's move on to the other option that the chief has mentioned. Reducing this from what we look, these are approximately 5 each or so. If you were to reduce that to 2, you said 2, and it'd be functional?
Yes, sir. Two would get us, in case of any situation, we would be able to respond, more effectively. For the first 3, the mass casualty kit, that could drop down to 1. The tourniquets, that was to equip each officer with a tourniquet on their gun belts. We deployed approximately 5 tourniquets to residents and serious car accidents and issues. So the tourniquets, that's more of we're seeing that more of a everyday usage. We do try to acquire some from the fire department when they come, but right now we don't have enough for every officer. So
How much
so-
money in total do we have listed so far in here? I don't know if anybody has the Excel to add it up, but from the number, all the orange, is that a come up to what, $65,000?
95,398.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
I'd
So-
say just not do that.
Hey, all right, how about that? Look at that.
That's
Not
that's a big chunk of money. So I think I think we can put a number maybe and give you the opportunity to prioritize maybe the top 5 things that you need. Again, if going from 0 to 100 grand on spend trying to catch up is a big ask.
Chief, do you have any, probably not, but do you have any idea at all, if you were to reduce this from 5 down to 2, what that might look like?
I don't have these, for the most of the big ones are broken into 5. Some of those are broken into, like for the life rings and stuff, 1 per vehicle, printers, believe it's 1 per vehicle. So those we could even break down possibly a little bit more. I could go through and we could make a little bit more of an operational saving, on those areas. But I would strongly urge that to leave possibly the less than lethal, the Aspatons and the beanbag guns in there, because those would gives the officer we're seeing an increase in mental health issues in response.
Right, but it sounds like we could.
15,000.
Like 15,000. Okay, so I
Yeah,
think
let's see
we
15.
So how about we put the 15 as a tentative, so we can move on
Here's-
and I'm just saying, so because I know we still haven't finished. I understand the need, at least on my end, I understand the need to catch up with all of this that needs to be done, but 100 grand is just from one fiscal to the other, it's just not feasible to me.
We can't afford that.
No, we cannot. So I think the idea of the must-haves that you're highlighting, and then we can make it as an orange, this is the first budget out of 3 meetings that we'll have to discuss, and we can see if even might need to wait for the next budget season. But at this stage, I would be okay with making a round number to 15 grand based on what you just described. Put it in
May I-
orange so we
May
can
I
move on.
add on to that a little bit?
Sure.
I would rather see us, if we're going to put money in here, I see this as 2 different things. One is all this tactical stuff that I don't think we necessarily need right now. And maybe we'll figure out another way to get that. However, life-saving equipment. So I had an email out to the chief and Chris recently. I didn't get information. I don't know that we're deficient in this regard, but I want to know that our police force has all the tools that they need to save people's lives when they're waiting for emergency response. They're first on the scene. I see tourniquets on here. I see trauma kits. I don't know, I mean, I know what a tourniquet is. I don't think a bolt cutter is going to save anyone's life. Maybe it is if you're going to get in a house to save someone, an active shooter. But things I want to know are is our police staff, do they have the equipment to save lives? Do they have defibrillators and whatever they should have? And are they properly trained to use them when they're out? Because they're first on the scene to a lot of tragic events. That's a real concern of mine. We have elderly people. If someone has a heart attack walking their dog on the street, God forbid, and they call for an ambulance, do your officers have what they need to provide assistance? Do they have the training and the tools to do it? To me, in this area, that's a really important thing. Some of the other things I think we can wait for and not budget for from our money. Everyone gets my drift? And that's what I would like to see. If we're going to leave some money in here, Vero, I'd like to see it kind of earmarked for that, knowing that within the budget, the chief and Chris can do what they need to do within the department anyway. They always have that ability.
Yeah.
If
I'm
we,
okay.
if we reduce what we're looking at now, the 95, put a number on it, say work within that number and see what you can do, we can always reduce it or increase it. So what if we were to set it, 15 was those last three items that the chief mentioned, but I agree with you, Mac, that some of the budgeting for some of the life-saving things, some of the necessary things important. What if we just earmark this at 25 right now?
I'm better with 25 than 15, but chief, we're in a hurry. I know we have to do stuff, but can you give us a quick answer? Do you feel your officers do have this stuff? Do they have the training? Do they have the tools need to assist people while they're waiting for EMTs and for the folks who would really save a life?
The short answer, no.
Okay.
Not prepared
That,
right now.
to me, is a bigger concern.
Let me jump in and clarify. All of our officers are able to perform CPR. They are able to perform very basic initial first aid. So we don't have officers out there that are capable of doing that. What the chief
That
is
are incapable of doing it.
correct.
Okay.
What the chief is speaking to is we need the additional equipment to be able to do that correctly.
That's what I'm asking. And additional training as people come on. And I don't know if it probably wouldn't be in this budget, but another part of the conversation is, Chris, is it appropriate to have other staff members? I don't know, is ESA at the rec center or anyone there trained to administer first aid? If something happens there at the rec center, God forbid. Public Works, if something happened to one of the folks on duty and they were injured. We recently had a resident had a pretty traumatic injury cutting a tree branch, and your guys are doing it all day. So are there other departments that should also have this kind of training and equipment at their disposal? I'm worried about everyone's safety. And I don't expect a hard answer right now for you to know exactly what equipment is in every department, but sort of generally speaking, it's all of one conversation.
It would be beneficial for every employee to have basic first aid training as well as CPR training. I know CPR training is one of the things we're currently working with.
Yes, we are scheduled, I believe it's roughly the beginning of September. The police department will be providing all rec center employees and all public works, BLS, a basic life support, first aid, AED, initial first aid training. So that's what we're gonna roll our program out to all the other departments.
And also, I'd like to know that they have whatever tools you think they need necessary. I mean, I travel a lot, and in airports, I see defibrillators on walls all over the place now. It's like, at a moment's notice, someone can grab someone who knows what they're doing can grab one of these things and get to work on someone in those critical seconds until someone like Ryan shows up to actually, save a life.
100%. The minutes, just so you know, our closest fire department is Miami Shores. The fastest response time you can get from the Miami Shores department to the police department, which is probably one of the closer points, is 7 minutes.
Yeah.
North Miami is 8 minutes.
Yeah. that's
So
a lot.
if they're at home ready to roll, that's the fastest they can get here.
Exactly. So at any rate, in this area and maybe in this object code, we could let them retool this, put a $25,000 figure on it, let them sort of take that idea and run with it, if you guys agree with that. But I'd rather focus here on life-saving things than some of the other things, and we'll figure those things out later.
I think that's a good number to set it at to work within and take a look at it when we come back.
I'm
Just to be
good with
clear,
that.
I'm good with that as well. Chief or Chris, do we have, because we I didn't get a full answer. Do we have AEDs in every car?
What's an
No,
AED?
we have,
Call it a defibrillator, it's actually a AED is the technical term.
we have 4 AEDs.
AEDs. Okay.
And I
And
think we're still working on the Firehouse Subs grant.
We're trying to get we did not, the previous administration did not provide, specific things that were asked for, so we would have to wait for the next cycle to try to get it again.
there's definitely grant opportunities to have one in every car, every public facility. We don't have to really pay for them. We can get grant opportunities to get those.
And Ryan, I'm sorry, are you an EMT?
A paramedic.
You're a paramedic. So you save lives. Those minutes are critical, aren't they?
They're critical, yes. CPR and AEDs being readily available is the most important thing. American Heart has shown that just a basic bystander doing CPR with nothing else
Mhm.
changes the outcome.
Changes the outcome. And then when you show up, everyone steps back and lets you go in and do your.
7 minutes is 7 to 12?
Yes,
I
yes, sir.
called them on that. I don't think that's right. I think it's more.
Oh, no, they're, that was us running from there, doing it, ourself, a test.
Here, Code 3.
Yep.
But yes, having all of our staff trained in CPR would be a great help in
Okay.
patient outcomes.
So do we agree that the orange things here that we think add up to about $100,000 or whatever the number was,
5, yeah.
we'll reduce it to 25 and focus on life-saving equipment and have the other conversation later?
Yes, sir.
Everyone cool with that?
Good with that, yeah.
That works for me.
Fine with that. And Chief, are you open to donations for?
I'm going to count that as a 70.
Yes, sir. Any kind of donations, we
70?
constantly,
We'll look to one
try to
Our
get-
running total, Paul.
120-ish.
See if I can assist with that.
Yeah, did we confirm the $2,000 out of the contingency? I know we talked about it, but I didn't hear the informal yes.
2,000 out of that,
Yeah,
yeah.
we did.
And the
We had,
7 and change out of the
moved-
police.
I've marked that as 50.
Yeah.
I have us
in my
about
head I did.
120-ish.
We're getting there.
So the next big one was Education 55. That was a large increase. So there's, quite a few here. I don't know, Chief, if you wanted to explain any of this, if you want to walk us through some of this, or Chris, if you wanted to, I mean,
I just
Either
had
of
a
you.
question before you answer that, if you don't mind just adding to that explanation on the, we seem to be $10,000 higher than predicted. On
which item?
What are we talking about?
55,000, sorry, education and training. I thought that's where you guys were
Talking
going.
about the total?
So I'm looking at year to date, June 30, 2024, we spent $16,000. But it says the adopted budget with 6,000.
Do we know what the overage is for?
Not off the top of my head, I'll have to do some digging on this.
This is the other challenge we have every year at budget season. We talked about this last year when we did our postmortem. We get to things like this and we should know what it is. And this is one of the things that we specifically requested. One of the things was we need more history. And another one was, what is it? We get here and we look at it. We all look at each other with blank stares. We don't know what it is.
Could this be from accreditation?
There's a note that it was moved. I think there was an adjustment earlier in the year, and this was one of the line items that took that. But I don't
Accreditation,
have that granular detail at this moment, but we.
This were on a spreadsheet. There can be notes in there and that we could all see, and it's so much easier than looking at a PDF.
I
So
assume
my
we moved
question
to
was on
58.
that and also on the 55,002, where we had adopted 15,000 and spent 0 so far on active
Oh.
shooter. training.
It
That
looks
bill just
like,
hasn't come in yet.
What's that?
That bill hasn't come in yet.
We
And it
did
will be
that
for the
training.
15?
It was
we did
15 total, correct, Chief?
Correct.
Yeah.
We did, half the training so far. With Monday, they start here in the cabin again.
And
And-
why is it half for 2025?
We had to break for span of control, they do the classes in, smaller numbers to get the, personnel through. So it's all together one cost, the 15, but they had to break the classes down to get them done.
Okay.
So we're not going to spend the full 15 this year?
No, we've already spent that. It's there. Believe we sent Apex
It's in the process. We've spent the 15. It's in the process of being paid. We had the one class two weeks ago. We have another class coming up next week. It's just not reflected in the budget yet because it hasn't been fully paid.
That will wipe out the 15.
Correct.
And then Pharaoh's question, why do you only need 8 next year? Because staff will have been trained already?
Correct. So after the Stone Douglas shooting, the governor mandated that we have specific training per the policy. So the initial rollout costs a lot because we had to do the physical 3-day class for everyone. After that's completed, it only has to be any new people that come in, and then a small refresher, like a 1-day refresher after that. So it would drop down the initial.
It would capture the new staff and everyone's refresher.
Yes, sir.
That answer your question, Vero?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So then are we clear to look at the orange items here?
Yeah, I don't know what a lot of that is, and it's another big chunk of money.
Yeah, so Chief or Chris or whoever is better
How do
situated.
we
we can
handle these things now?
We-
That's my big question is what are we doing in these regards now? For example, I thought we did send people to a gun range for training, and I see gun range fees on here with no history.
In the past, we were able to use the Medley gun range, some of the ICE detention gun ranges, which were free of charge. We weren't charged for those. So we never had that cost. After Medley closed their gun range down, and then Trailglades, the customs officer killed the other customs officer on accident. They have booked the complete range for every day, pretty much from open to 1 PM for only customs officers, so they don't hurt anyone else outside their agency. So it's pretty much driven the demand for ranges because every officer's got to go twice a year to just pretty much dwindling down to availability of free range spots. We have to have the range conducted in the same calendar year each year. So we had to look for alternate sources because there's just everything's booked with the influx of people catching up and trying to get to the ranges. No, sir. That's all going to be in the training aspect to get the trainers in. This also covers a EMT program to try to get EMTs on each shift. We are working out with a doctor to see if we can, and she's already agreed to be our medical director free of charge if we can launch that program. So we are looking at some of that. That training is going to be the application of our life-saving training over to the officers so that they can perform more effectively and provide a better level of service to the community on the first aid aspect. The other trainings are the advanced, for instance, prior we didn't have the background person in the previous administration wasn't certified in backgrounds. They weren't certified in internal affairs. They weren't certified in numerous of the courses that one accreditation requires them to be certified and through the effectiveness we need to send them. So again, yes, it impacts this year's budget because we have to have that increase to catch up, but a lot of it's things that should have been done quite some time ago. Yes, sir. Again, SPI is a command development school for supervisors to go to increase their ability to lead. It's also it builds a lot of connections. All the Mikosuki donated cars that we got, the radars that were donated, the body cameras that were donated, all of those were based off of the connections of just attending one SPI class. So yes, we paid some money for it, but in the outcome, it built relationships with other agencies that we were able to get a lot more in return. It's a training. That's a 400-hour training course. I took that course. Yes, sir. I took that.
Moving forward, though, that will be for command staff supervisors.
Mac, I don't hear you.
I'm sorry, Vero. I'm asking him to explain what some of these things are, and he started with SPI command course, and it's a course for him.
Yeah, I took that last
Chief,
time.
you took it.
This would be to send 2 other personnel to it next.
For your 2 new captains?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so And this is only for people in command positions, or will officers start, is this something we'll see every year?
No.
Let's say we didn't change staff,
No, sir. If the staff stays, this would be for this year.
one-time thing. Okay, so this is something you've gone through personally, and now you want to send your two captains through it as well.
Yes, sir.
That's the price for two of them to go through it.
Yes, sir.
Is it
Can I ask
necessary, do
a
you think, for
question
both
as-
of them to do it?
We could send one and then,
Maybe we could do one this year and one the following year?
yes, sir.
Okay, so there's an opportunity to cut that in half if we only went for one instead of two.
That was gonna be my question, just on the, does it all need to be fiscal 2025? Again,
And
I
does
think-
it, and how many people are involved in these things? That's what, he's gonna go down the list and explain that to us. So the first one's for two people, and there's a possibility of only doing one.
Yes, sir.
Would you be satisfied if one did one this year?
Yes, sir.
One did it this year?
Yes,
That
sir.
would be a big advancement for you. Ryan, you were gonna say something?
Well, my first question is, could these trainings also fall under federal funds? Because
Oh, good question.
it seems like if the timing's not critical, that we could get that done through, I mean, maybe gun range fees not, but the other ones I think seems like they could be like timing wise.
Don't worry, we're not supplanting the budget.
Two funds.
I just covered it. You're good.
We taped it. We'll just press play every time someone brings it up. That's a good question, though.
I think that might be a question is, that might,
$500,000, we're gonna have to get creative on how to.
Yeah, exactly.
is that a question, Brad, for you then? Just the nature of these items, the trainings? Not asking.
These aren't
to supplant the
things.
budget, but would they be, yes. I don't even want to, I don't want to split hairs.
That's $50,000 right there.
We can hear you.
I said that's $50,000 right there.
No,
All the
I
orange on
I
that
think
page.
it was Brad that is,
Oh.
47,000.
whoever's talking that I can hear the other person.
Brad's checking for us right now if these are, the training and education here under item 55, if these are things that would be coverable by the seizure funds.
Okay.
Commissioner, all you heard was Brad groaning.
Yeah, it was pretty much something like that.
I will read to you what the permissible use is, and you all can take from the definition. So, a permissible use for law enforcement training is training of agency personnel, including investigators, prosecutors, and sworn and non-sworn law enforcement personnel in any area necessary to perform official law enforcement duties, provided that employees' regular duties require knowledge of these topics. Examples include training and conferences, registration fees, tuition, speaker fees, or cost to produce training curriculum on topics such as serving as a canine handler, narcotics detention, defensive tactics, criminal justice, languages, constitutional law, accounting and finance, or forensics. Agencies may not pay for training expenses of non-agency personnel.
Some of them at least.
Yeah, sounds like
Sounds like all of it.
Can I ask you really quickly, Chief,
Not the gun range fees.
of all these things, the gun range fees are still kind of interesting to me. These sound like they're necessary.
Yes, the gun range fees would be necessary for us to qualify every year.
That wouldn't fall into this training.
I would not. See, that's the one that seemed maybe not to me too. Okay, so everything but gun, because I think it all sounds kind of important. And if the chief is saying these things are important to further his staff and that, you know, relationships bring things to us that are worth things, worth, you know, money. Why don't we wipe out everything except for the gun range fees and look elsewhere to cover the other expenses? Because the gun range fees you were covering somewhere else for free and you can't now. So that, you have to do that. They have to
Gun
be,
range is a little more in the red, I think, than the orange. It seems-
yeah, exactly. It should be more orange red.
Now we're really splitting hairs.
Are you following that, Pharaoh?
Yeah, I got it.
Then-
Thank you.
What do you guys think of that?
I'm fine with that. I think that's, gun rage fees, we definitely need that, and I think the rest of it we need as well, but I think we could find it through other ways.
And in the future somehow, we'll figure that out.
I think, the only caveat that I would say is I would love to leave a little bit of money in there for medical training, but, we can revisit it and there's other options. So I
I
think,
think in the other department we were just in, we left money in there that it's kind of a crossover there as well. If you go back up to 52, is that what it was? 50?
wise, yeah,
Yeah, because
we left that at,
we left,
25.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like in that you could include the training. I mean, there's overlap there. There's like, it's EMT training in one area and the other one is stuff and then
The training is generally a one-time expense. Supplies are going to be an ongoing expense.
Yeah, EMT training would not fall into that category either that we were talking about.
Would not.
Would not. That is not a classic standard training for law enforcement officers. So if you're thinking of using shared funds to send your officers to EMT,
Don't worry, we're not, Brad.
I'm just,
We're not.
I've been through an audit from the Justice Department with 2 agencies.
Mhm.
You do not want to go through it.
Okay, then why don't we cut everything out of here except for gun range fees and the EMT, but make it $5,000 for the EMT here and the other one that we cut down to 25 for the supply stuff that include medical stuff, cut it back to 20 in there and move 5 over here.
These are two different things. We're talking about EMT
Exactly.
supplies versus EMT training.
But it's all of one topic. So but we're saying the training has to be in a separate budget that is categorized as education and training. So shift some of the money over here and say, look, you're still getting
I see what you.
25 for life-saving topic generally, 20 in stuff and 5 in training
Yeah, I
in 2 different line items.
see what you're saying.
So leave 20 over there and leave 5 over here and leave gun range altogether
So it would
and
be,
cut the rest.
then basically what we're talking about doing is taking 52 from 25 to 20 and taking education to 10. Because gun range is about 5.
5, yes, yeah, there you go. So leave gun range as is, leave 5 for EMT training, and then cut the rest. And then over in the equipment thing, decrease it to 20,000 for all the equipment, life-saving related equipment. We had left 25 there, just change that to 20 and move 5 over here for training.
Yeah, I see what you're doing. What do you think, this is for
Is
how
that a
many?
consensus or is that?
Just, I have one more
it's
question.
combo.
How many is this for, Chief? EMT at 885?
EMT is about the 1,400 a person. Let me just double check. That was for 6. If we dropped it to 4, we could ensure we have 1 per shift.
Chief, did you make contact with the school? Do they have availability for you to fit 4 officers in? I spoke with one of the registrants and they said that they would be able to, they might have to break it up 2 and 2, but they would be able to work it out with us. Sometimes it's a availability thing. They might wait a year.
Then it works.
Yeah, I mean, more or less it does. Let's make it 5,000 and he'll figure it out. And you're not doing them all on October 1st anyway. And if you need a couple of $100 to get the 4th person completely paid for it within your greater budget, I'm sure you'll find it.
Yeah, I think that works. I think that the 20 for item 52 and the 10 for 55, I think works.
Paul, did you catch that?
Item 52 is 20K
I've got that added.
and item 55 is 10.
Just for my simple mind, we're on this, we're keeping EMT class and gun range fees, and that's it from the.
You're keeping EMT class, but dropping it to $5,000 and
Mhm.
keeping gun range exactly as it is and getting rid of everything else that was added in orange in 55. In 52, you're keeping anything related to life safety things but it's only gonna be an additional 20,000 instead of 25,000.
I have that.
Is that right, Jonathan?
That's what I had, yes.
So it's a new reduction of 42,742.
So-
Is that? I'm getting 2 voices each time and I just want to be respectful of the other 2 voices. One
Yes,
on
yes.
Zoom, the other one I can't see.
Yes,
through from there.
Sorry,
Yes.
I'm on board.
Okay,
Okay. All right.
that's all
so-
my police comments.
What's that?
That's all my police comments.
I didn't have anything else.
I have a couple things. They might be quick. We skipped over them.
Which number?
Scrolling back to, okay, 31, computer server. When I was watching last year's budget workshop, that was communicated that that was a one-time expense because the computer server failed and we had to buy a new one.
No,
It says that nothing's been bought this year, so did we buy the computer server? Do we need that in there still? Do we not?
Yes, sir. We've already gotten that, that bills, I believe, in processing. Loxia is not the fastest on the billing aspect.
So we're gonna need to buy another one again this year.
Right now, it's the Wi-Fi system failed.
We can pull that 80 foot. We won't have to buy another server. then.
No, we would not have to buy another server.
good call,
Item
Ryan.
31
And
at 85. So that
Which-
85 for
which one
proposed
was that
25 is
again?
gone? We're in item number 31, professional
31.
services. It's the computer server item. It was 85 for adopted and last year and
Yeah.
85 for proposed, but it sounds like we don't need the 8,500 for this year, correct?
No, I don't believe so.
Great.
And this might be a silly question, but Comcast on 41, is that for Wi-Fi?
Yes, I believe that is our Wi-Fi.
And then under admin, we have Comcast again, Wi-Fi. Why do we have two Wi-Fis in the same building? Can the police and admin not share the same internet?
Correct. They cannot share. The police has to be separate.
That's why it's a silly question. Okay.
I will say with Comcast, the decrease in there, we actually canceled cable TV.
Saw that, I saw
Yeah,
that.
the note, yeah.
And my last question was another red line item we're not supposed to touch. Fuel, that's supposed to be for the whole city, but we only spent 24,000 on fuel?
What,
What
which number
object-
we in?
Sorry, 52. For fuel, because I know 90,000 is supposed to be for all fuels go through the police, but it says we only spent 24,000 on fuel.
We haven't been billed by North Miami for the last 4 or 5 months. The in-house billing for North Miami, the Jeff Grimer, I believe it was the person doing it. He got promoted. So it's been a very difficult process to get our bills. Right now, we're just been paying for out of North Miami fuel.
I think I
That
got
will
a
hit us at
water
some point.
bill one time from them when I lived in North Miami.
Uh, it will be coming. They just, I believe it's 4 or 5 months backup right now on North Miami billing.
So if it's 4 or 5 months backup, then instead of 9 here, this is 5, be another 20, you're still gonna come in well under.
I would double check on.
Maybe maybe you could look into that again because
I
it
can
looked
check that.
like, to his point, even at that, we're over budgeted. And
Falls on it, he said.
Ryan is a slashing machine.
Okay.
Love it.
And
I gotta
and
find
then
it.
on the
Someplace
same-
there's also fuel a second time in the budget. I think it's under Public Works.
On the
Find it
same
again.
note, while we're on 52, the public safety equipment, ballistic vest, vehicle tracking system, all of that need to be repeated for 24 and 25?
Yes, ma'am. Ballistic vests do expire. The rotation that we have on the vest is by the time we buy the next batch for the next year, there's a set being cycled out due to the expiration dates.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other questions on police before we let you go, chief?
I had one more at the end. 58 accreditation program? Is
The
that?
one that was rolled over from 55, I think.
Okay. Oh, so that is a rollover, because I see it was we did not budget for it.
Yeah, and in item 55, it says, there's a note next to accreditation that says move to 58
Got it.
last
Okay.
year.
55,
yeah.
did you say?
That note's from last year, so we just left it in there so you could remember.
Commissioner, you had a question on that area?
Yeah, no, I wanted to understand what the 8,920 for year-to-date spend, but not budgeted was for an accreditation program. Under 58. But you said there was a rollover, Paul?
I gotta check. I'm not exactly sure.
Do you follow me? I'm on 58000 accreditation program, year to date up to June 30th of 8,920.
Yeah, I have to see what it was spent on before I can answer. Sorry.
I don't have more questions on my end.
Okay. Okay, if there's no more questions on the police,
What is the accreditation? Where do, I thought that was supposed to be done this year.
The
Let me jump in on that real quick. Major Navarro was supposed to be handling accreditation, with Major Navarro's exit and then the chief's exit. A lot of it had not, was not completed. Chief Steele has now taken over. Well, actually, is it Captain Rosero doing the accreditation?
I'll be
So he's
leading the
picking it
accreditation.
back
He'll be
up
assisting.
again.
So did we spend money on things that weren't done or weren't done properly or have to be redone?
No, the funds that we've spent were for things like Power DMS, which is the whole online policies, procedures, bulletins, those sorts of things. So all the expenses or all the expenditures that we've done have been necessary. We're just not to accreditation yet.
Because I felt like at a certain point, we were throwing money at accreditation. There was I'm not sure if you were part of this, Chief, but there was an ask for additional money. I mean, there was money budgeted, there was money budgeted again, we need more money, throw more money at it, and now we're not anywhere. Well, we're somewhere, but we're not done. So was anything wasted money?
No, I don't think anything was per se wasted because a lot of the resources there were beneficial to the department with the Power DMS system that helps us track and monitor, hold our training. It wasn't used to the fullest potential, which we are shifting over to that now to even get more out of what we have in it. All of our officer safety bulletins are being published through our additional in-house training, everything in that nature. So I don't believe any of it was wasted.
It was spent to help us get accredited. Is it all helping us get accredited?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It will be, all of that was 100% beneficial to us getting accredited this cycle. We will get accredited. I just met with them the last couple of days. We will be signing the new contracts, in August and, we should be,
Careful, chief.
we'll be accredited soon.
And because we're
the-
late on this, I don't know if we're officially late. Does anything have to be redone? Are we going to throw any extra money at this because we didn't get it done when we were supposed to?
No, I was able to get no,
There were,
no, no.
yeah, there were some expenditures that we actually didn't pay because it was taking us longer than it should have to get there. The chief was actually able to negotiate that, so we are not out. Every expenditure that we've made has been 100% necessary for accreditation.
For accreditation, not just
Correct.
useful in other regards.
Correct. It's 100% required for that. The only thing that's changed is the timeline. The extra money that was thrown into that, I don't think the original budget included the Power DMS system, and that was required for accreditation. So I think that was the big ask that they came back
It
with.
was a software ask, if I recall.
Yep, that's Power DMS.
Correct. Power DMS. So that was because that's the accreditation tool. That's what holds it. That holds our assessment, everything. But it also can be our personnel files, our training files. That program is endless with the possibility.
Okay.
all right, chief. Well, thanks so much for all your help. I think we're done with the police side for right now. Thanks, chief.
Bring me back presents.
All right, so let's take a look back at the larger ask budget. Let's just go back up to the top. Let's just start with, we jumped down to police. So let's just start at the top with commission. Let's see. I'm gonna open mine up, so I'll just open the floor for anybody that wants to look at any line items there.
Okay, I'm sorry, what were we looking?
Commission.
Oh,
I'll-
yeah, go ahead.
I'll start right off, C41 phones. I thought we moved everything to helium, but we're still paying for phones on commission.
Yeah, that's one of mine.
41.
We approved the expenditure for helium. We didn't approve phase 2 until this past meeting, I think it was.
A regular meeting at the beginning of the month.
Yeah. That we'll be switching over, I would assume by the end of next week, and then we'll be canceling the commission's cell phones with AT&T.
That'll drop to 0?
For commission, yes. Well,
No, I mean, we still have to pay. For
yeah, we're paying through for helium.
Yeah, but
It'll be-
it's accounted on the admin budget for 28 phones. Is that enough phones for the whole city?
Yes,
So then this would be 0 because you're paying for it on admin.
correct.
You're not going to put it in each department?
What's that?
You're not going to apportion it to each department?
We can?
I thought you had to. I thought we always did that. No? I didn't
Is this
expect
on
this. I didn't
41,000? Are we
Yeah,
on?
41. Sorry.
Okay.
I didn't
Yeah.
expect it to go to 0. I thought it was going to drop to helium pricing, whatever that is.
So this is gonna drop to very roughly by half. If you factor in the helium costs.
I mean, should we just roll this into admin since they're all there so we don't have this problem in the future where we're saying, well, wait, does commission phones include employee phones?
I was under, and I learned this back at the beginning, unless we're doing things differently now, that things like this needed to be assigned to different departments.
Gotcha.
So if there's 5 commissioners and 5 phones, that 5 phones worth of helium would show up in our budget. And if there's 6 over at Village Hall, 6 showed up there and 1 showed up in the rec center and 4 showed up. That's what I always understood how these things should work. Paul?
Both are optional. You can, either approach is acceptable. It depends on your preference, really. What-
It certainly makes it all look more
Get
logical.
a lot of
when you
skewing,
Keep it
when you bundle
to
it.
a
in one
department.
Yeah, like fuel is clearly a good example of what we do, but that's sometimes the labor effort to split it all up is not worth the information.
That's this is a monthly.
This is simple.
This is easy. Because if you look at this and you see, we have 5 commissioners and there's 5 phones, it's easy to understand. But if there's like 28 lumped of them into admin, it's like, well, who are the 28 people that have phones in the village? And you're trying to figure that out in future years. But here it's like, if it's in the commission budget, there's 5 phones. If it's in Public Works and only the manager gets one, then there's 1. And it's all very logical and you aren't over budgeting.
So it's a trade-off.
I would prefer, I like the way it is here, just it needs to be switched to helium. That's my preference.
Yeah, just tell me what to do. We can do it.
It'll come down to the price that was approved at the regular commission meeting, so we can leave it there and we can reduce it. You said about half?
By half, yeah, that's it.
Correct.
Great.
Right?
Well, I'll
Then
get you that exact dollar.
My other 2 were in 54 Microsoft licenses. I didn't even know we had that ability. I know you guys, want to reviewing for this meeting. I saw that you added it last year. I don't use it. I don't know if you guys do.
I think it's for, who
I
uses
did.
this? Sarah,
I
yeah.
asked for it last
Yeah.
year, yeah.
Yeah, well, if it's being used, it's being used. I mean, I didn't even know we had it until I reviewed for this meeting, so.
I don't know that we need 500 because if only me, I'm the only one, then I would ask how much that is, but
How much is it?
500.
No, I mean, how much is it for the actual license? I don't need it.
I can't remember off the top of my head. I
I
don't,
can watch the meeting. You said how much it was per person,
yeah,
simple one, and then for like a government plan, I forget what the numbers were.
yeah, I'll have to look into that again.
Okay,
Okay.
so if Vero's the only one using it, I
Yeah.
would hesitate cutting it down to 1 person's worth because we have as many as 3 new commissioners joining
Yeah.
us in December. So
Yeah.
Okay.
maybe apportion it to like 2 people's worth and see how that goes.
I think for the scale of it, I would leave it.
Leave it at 500.
And then my last one was 55 education and training. I know it was mentioned last year that no one's received training. And so $300 was spent. I don't know what it was spent on this year.
That's my question too.
And-
You all do ethics
$400.
training every year?
Yeah, we do have ethics training, but I think that's free now.
It's
free.
free.
it is.
It's
right?
online too. You just watch a video, a pre-recorded video.
I don't know. I mean, I can't say I've done any that would cost any money.
Oh, what was
No.
the $300 spent on?
That was the mystery last year too.
And how much did we spend the years prior in 55? Zero 1 year, $1,800, $1,300. Couldn't tell you what that was for. That was last fiscal year. And this year to date, what did we spend $1,300 on last year, Paul?
I wouldn't know that.
That's the stuff I wish I knew when we were having. the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I can bring an entire ledger file and look these up as you're asking, or I can have it,
think
I'm
you
thinking
should
of
look
ways
that up.
to help, and it's a lot of information.
I know. I thought spreadsheets kind of connected to each other and you clicked on something and it told you what it was.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
I mean, do we want to tentatively reduce this to 0 since we're not spending?
I'm not going to spend it on anything.
I don't plan on it.
Fine with
I
keeping
don't
it?
know
No, fine with
we
reducing it to
have it.
0.
I would put it in 0.
I agree with that.
Jumping back real quick, did we decide to keep the 500 for Microsoft licenses?
Yes.
I recommended just leaving it.
Okay.
Keeping it as is. Okay. Are you done with commission?
Yeah, I mean, just reviewing for the last second, all the subscription and memberships says year to date 0. Are we not paying League of Cities and or League of Mayors?
I mean, the $150 for League of Mayors, I can tell you right now, the meetings are never anywhere close to us. No, they're not. I've been to one. There's another one that was in the Keys, but it's the Keys. The closest one that they had was Coral something or other up in Broward. Or no, maybe North Miami. That was, but everywhere else, it's all over the state. There's none of, it's not easy to, they have some virtual ones, but we can't really attend any of them in person unless we're traveling, and there's really no point.
Look, if we're not using these things,
Historically, you were.
League of Cities, certainly, I mean,
that one, yes.
yeah, that one we go to.
Right. And my recommendation is to hold these placekeepers, like, or Mac's earlier point that you have 3 new bodies potentially that may.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they're small enough.
It's
for
not
it.
substantial
All
to that
these-
point.
I know, but all these little
All these little things add up.
things add up, and before you know it, you could reduce the millage rate by 0.1. Doesn't take much in a little budget. Okay, I have a couple of commission things, if I may.
Is that what you had, Ryan?
In here, where is travel? Okay, so while I'm in one breath saying if we don't do it, cut it out of the budget, travel is at 0. Vero, object code 40.000. Travel is at 0
Yeah.
for the commission. And we had talked about going to Tallahassee and having proper representation there and doing that right. And I think that we do need to do. Now, if I were going to do it, I would say I'll foot my own bill. But I'm only one of 5 of us and I may not be here in December. So I think
But we did
here-
it. I thought last year we put money. It was like $2,000. It was
Well, it
a
says 0 in here.
I'm almost positive that we agreed to it. So to your point, I'm with you 100%.
But we need to do it.
We need to do it. I have a conversation at some point. We'll get to that, and I talked to Chris about this on, connecting with Mr. Caserta. I remember we had a meeting specifically to let us know, when is it needs to happen? Is it in Tallahassee? Is it before? Is it here? Maybe we don't even need to travel, but it seems to be like that's not the right approach. It was a recommendation he had. Maybe that we do it before, maybe we do it here. Whatever it is, I'm 100% on board. It just, that was going to be one of my questions. I was almost 100% sure we had allocated $2,000 for it. And it was a big math of like 2 nights in a hotel, plus gas. It was like a very round up number. And I remember having a conversation with him like, hey, we have this allocated for the first time ever. What would you recommend? And we haven't heard back since. So I think there's a couple things. One needs to happen. So maybe just put him back in. Maybe it doesn't need to be the $2,000. Maybe it's $1,000. And the second would be, I don't know at what point we talk about Mr. Caserta. Where is his budget sitting? On
It's in administration. We're going to get there next, and I
Okay.
have it on my list of things to discuss as well. I think it's time to have that conversation, at least
Yeah.
have a conversation. So I'm with you, Vero. Can we wait until we get to admin?
Yeah, absolutely. But
Okay.
I'm with you on this one. Again, Paul, I'd like you to just double check on if we always had it at zero, but I think we had it at $2,000. It was my request. I remember during budget season.
I do remember the whole conversation as well, Vero. I'm not remembering that we left it in there, but I remember a conversation and I wouldn't be surprised if you're right.
Yeah, I remember the conversation as well. I thought we did, maybe we didn't, regardless. I had several conversations with David about it, and what really just needs to happen, not to belabor the points so we can move on, but it just needs to be planned. It needs to be planned well in advance.
It needs to be communicated with us.
Yeah, I
Yes,
spoke to him, I
I
spoke to
agree.
him like the week before session. He's like, you could come up tomorrow. I'm like, I can't really
I did too.
tomorrow. I'm like, it's.
Let's have that conversation when we get to add.
Yeah, I agree,
I
I
have it
agree.
on my list and I have some.
So-
Should we put then a budget in here for like 1,500 or what, the 2,000 we had, like what's the idea?
I'd be okay with $1,000 because look, if I
with
were if I were the one to go and I used part of that, I have, hotel points I would use and contribute it on my own. I would try to help out. So I'm $1,000 and pray that
$1,000.
and hope that it happens this year because this is my fourth time doing this and we've never done anything. So
Does going into the sessions have a cost?
No.
no, but you have to get there and you have to eat.
So I'm
and
saying,
stay
does
in
it have a
hotel.
ticket? Like any member need to like buy a certain ticket to be
No.
part of
No.
the?
No, they're open to the public. You can just
Okay.
go in.
All right. So $1,000, 20.
Yeah, I'm good with 1,000. Is your mic off?
Okay, I
Sure.
have one other thing under commission, and I say this every year, and I'm gonna do it because I do it every year. So Ryan, welcome to your first time hearing this speech from me. So, we pay, the mayor $4,000 a year, commissioners get $2,000 a year. For commissioners, it comes to $167 a month before taxes. It doesn't pay my electric bill. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to be for unclaimed expenses that no one's allowed to ask me what I spend it on. It is my desire that we decrease our compensation to $1 per person annually. That would save us $12,000 out of this budget. That is about a third of a 0.1 millage. And I see no reason for us to be paying ourselves to do this at the amount that either give us a real salary and make this a job and then hold our feet to the fire to do things well, much better, or pay us $1 a year and say, thank you for serving your community. And it's my desire to go to $1 a year. I'm waiting for a second.
Look, I think I'm on the other mindset that I don't know, I tend to think that whoever wants to join the commission in the future may want to buy a suit to go to the League of Cities dinner. I go to that idea that not everybody is able to do this out of their pocket freely and participate in or having points as you described for merit when needed. This is money just compensation only, just to pay your gas, to pay your clothes. If you're a housewife and you don't own a suit and you're going to one of these meetings, you're able to go ahead and purchase yourself a suit and represent the village. If you want to put a logo and you want to get a logo into your clothing. So I think it is very, again, it's not much money at all. It's $2,000 in a year. You said, what was it? 167 a month or something like
Yep.
that?
It's $12,000 a year for the total all-in budget for all 5 of us. And we're
Yes,
not allowed to
I-
spend it on suits and logos.
No, well, I mean, it's part of the compensation of whoever needs to. And I'm okay to keep it that way. I want
Awesome.
to.
I'm losing. We can end it. Ryan, unless you're gonna say, yes, I support it. No, it's done. Move on.
Okay.
Are there any other commission
Got
comments?
it on the record again, didn't I, Janie?
Good, we have no others for commission. Let's go ahead and move on to admin. I'm gonna get mine open.
Since we just started a conversation that falls under admin regarding the lobbyist, do you want to jump to that first and finish that conversation while it's still fresh in everyone's mind? That is item number, it's professional services. Where is that?
It's a long one, though. The
Yeah,
admin one?
31. 31.
31?
Yeah. It's item 31. It's in there.
2% increase. Okay,
Can I jump in and say something?
yeah, of course.
Okay, so look, I had a conversation, I've had this conversation with several people, including Dave Caserta. So he's not going to be surprised when he finds out that I'm bringing this topic up. I think it is a commission's responsibility at some point to look at every contract that you have with vendors, service providers, attorneys, lobbyists, Comcast, great, the solid waste. I think it's our responsibility for everything that we have a contract for, that when these things are renewing all the time, to look at them and make sure we're getting what we want and we're getting the best that we can get for our money. And I'm not making a commentary on Dave's work for us as much as I'm making a commentary on this commission's responsibility to take a look at these things. This is a contract that has been going on for 25 years or more, I want to say. And I don't know that it was ever, quote, put out to bid to see what I have never hired a lobbyist. I have no idea what the going rate is for a lobbyist. I don't know what kind of services you're supposed to get from a lobbyist. But I'm not saying I'm not happy with what Dave's doing for us. I'm just saying I'm not aware enough to know if I'm completely satisfied. So I think it's our responsibility to periodically look at these things. And this one hasn't been looked at for a long time. And if I'm being completely transparent, and I think, Vero, you kind of touched on this, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like sometimes we get reports when we ask for them, but not unless we do. And I feel like a lot of the information is often after the fact, and it's well after the fact. This is what happened in Tallahassee, and we're finding out about things for the first time after it's kind of done, and we didn't have a chance to have an opinion on it, to get involved in it. And every year that I've been a commissioner, it's been, you guys should come and I'll tell you when you need to be there and we'll make a plan. And then it never happens. And a year later, we hear the same thing again. So again, I'm not saying we need to make a change, but I think we should have a conversation about putting it out to bid and making sure we're really getting the best we can do. I'm going to use the attorney as another example. We have a budgeted raise for them. I'm very happy with their services because I see what we're getting from Brad and his firm. I see it on an almost daily basis, so I have a reason to say I'm happy with the work we're getting from Brad and from, I'm drawing a blank on your law firm's name, Neighbors Giblin. So I know I can say, I have a measure in my mind of what we're getting for that money. And every year I say, guys, aren't you going to ask us for more money? Every year I say that, and this year they are. So yay, Brad, for asking us for more money this year. Every year I try to give it to you and you say no. So this year I'm glad you're coming with your handout. So that's my feeling on that. And I'm bringing this conversation up now because we're all here having a conversation about it. It's budget time. I don't know. We have budgeted here for a lobbyist. We have $23,000. I don't know what $23,000 gets you. And I don't know if we're getting $23,000 worth. So that's my feeling on it. Dave, if you're listening, it's not a commentary on your work as much as it is my ignorance about this. And as one of the people responsible for the money in this city, I feel a responsibility to take a look at this and make sure we're getting the best we can get.
Well, so
I-
it's, go ahead, Amsler, sorry.
No, it's just on the same note. That was part of my comments. I had a call with Chris earlier today just to touch base on that. And I think I would like to see, there's a couple things. One is the lobbyists, is for every dollar that you invest, what are you able to get? And that is a very hard prediction to do, right? Because it's not a straight a dollar for a dollar. It was tremendous help to get the money that we did for the drain project for the first phase, but I was very disappointed this year that we didn't get anything. And I understand that there is a process for that and all of that, but beyond that, I think the communication is my key point here. I 100% agree, Mac. I would have loved to hear as it goes through what the stages are, who's being talked to, what the sort of the feeling is about what we're asking. what our strategy is overall, if it needs to be changed. And I don't know that we have that sort of communication. The other part is, all the bills that pass and David made mention that he was going to share a report on that, on how things were going and the bills that were actually going to pass. And we didn't hear back. Actually, last year I had asked Valerie, I don't know if you guys remember, I forwarded you, Valerie had did a summary of the bills that passed after I requested for them. And I was going to ask Brad to do it for us, but I said, well, David already committed to it. So I think same thing, nothing against him. I feel like sometimes I'm not 100% clear what the role is in order to be asking whether a 23 is enough or not. So I'd like to have that conversation open to what is acceptable, what is in the industry standard to pay for lobbyists, how many hours go into that, sort of how do you track the work that's being done for you, and what commitments are there. So I'm happy to have that. And the same goes for the grant writer, where we have $36,000. And my question was the same, and to Chris this morning was, what's the strategy? So how many, for $36,000, how many grants have we been able to apply to? How much money did we get back? Does it mean that there is an opportunity for us to invest harder on it and get the money that we need for other projects? We have a CIP that needs to be populated with budget, and we had a lot of lines filled up with grants. We're not there yet. So these are the two areas that I think we need to look into, maybe invest in more, if we understand also that the services and the possibility also of it, it's a bigger impact on our budget. I remember Mayor Val Portal saying at one of the meetings, I think Mac and you and I went to that meeting once, that there was a lot of budget put into for grant writing and for really asking, lobbying for the money too. So, and he did get a lot. So I always, in my mind is, are we betting where we're supposed to? That's all it is. So I'm happy to start that conversation as well. I don't know the 36 for grant writer is enough, and I don't know the 23 for the lobbyists is enough.
Yeah, and to your point, Vero, I mean, if you and I are saying that we're less than completely satisfied, let's just put it that way, not to put words in your mouth, with the lobbyist, is it because we're not spending enough? That's the other flip side of it. It's like, okay, if we do, I mean, are we getting what we're paying for? So
Yes.
I don't know, because like I said before, I have never shopped for a lobbyist before. I inherited this lobbyist at that price tag, and I don't think it's ever increased. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think what I'm hearing is a lot of I don't knows, that we don't know what else is out there. I think the consensus is that we're not happy with the product we're getting, but we don't have enough information at this point to know what the corrective action is. Is it going a different direction? Is it increasing our spending on it? We don't know. I think we need to provide some direction to Chris to do a little market research on these two topics, to see what other municipalities are doing, what successes are they having with it, and seeing where else we can go with these directions. I just think that saying I don't know on this table enough times shows that we can't change this definitively right now. We need more information on it. I think leave it as it is, with a asterisk that we're going to come back to it with more information as to what the corrective action is. Is it more money, or is it a different direction?
But we have until September 30th to get that done for this
Yeah.
budget. So we're gonna either have to say, scratch them for now until we figure out what we're gonna do, or leave that number in here and move forward. And my fear is that, as is often the case, you let something like pass through, and then we all get busy doing other things, and before you know it, another year has gone past, and we kind of end up having the conversation again. So I know we can't vote on things tonight and make decisions on things tonight, but maybe, Jonathan, what we might want to do is ask Pamela to put this topic on the agenda for the next commission meeting, so we can have a conversation where we make a decision on something and give direction to Chris, because we can't give direction tonight, can we? We can?
Yeah.
Something's not
not?
budget related?
You can only discuss budget-related items.
Budget related items, yeah.
Certainly, I would suggest that the managers heard your words. So I don't know that you necessarily have to give him a direction, but if you're asking
Well, if
me to
he-
direct him to do something,
No.
No,
Right.
not today.
But if it's on the agenda for August, maybe he can come with something and we could have a more, a more full conversation about it.
Well, we could certainly, I think, putting it on for discussion there is necessary if we're talking about it.
Sure is not.
Yeah.
Is necessary. If we're talking about adjusting the numbers, like I don't know that it's advisable to cut a budget for either of these things entirely.
No,
But
if we're going to keep them, it should be based on something more than just what's
yeah,
passing through.
right. And it could be a good opportunity to ask David to join us and say, we'd like to ask you some questions. So it'd be a good opportunity to get him in front of the commission and say, David, these are the discussions we're having and we'd like to, just like an update. We'd like to know what's going on. We'd like to,
We had an update recently. I think it's a different conversation.
Yeah, for me, it was more in the lines of, so this is where I don't know how to fill this box during budget workshop tonight. I would want to know what is an average lobbyist for any other municipality cost? Is it 50? And that's the reason why we get what we get, because he's working at less hours. Again, I don't have top of mind his contract with me to understand what the conditions are, but I would like to hear a recommendation based on what municipalities of our size are doing when it comes to lobby and how has that paid off. Same thing with the grant writer. If El Portal invests 3 times on a grant writer than we do and gets a certain amount of money that we can track as a success, is that a strategy that we need to explore? And I'm making these numbers up. Of course, I have no idea what the number is, but that's for tonight. I'm stuck of just maybe leaving what we have with an asterisk that hopefully in the next 2 workshops that we're going to have about budget, we have some sort of an understanding of other scenarios that could be contemplated.
I'll
Yeah, look, I
jump
think
in,
that-
if I may jump in real
That
quick.
is a budget-related ask, so you can certainly ask that tonight, and I
well, so,
think you have.
Okay.
okay, so maybe we tentatively
Just-
right now, we say we'd like to put this on for discussion for our next agenda meeting, but for budget purposes, we leave as is so we can
Leave
get
it
some
as
more
is.
information. so
Leave
we
the
can-
grant writer as is too, but Vero's
Yeah.
making good points about the grant writer as well.
Well, I remember that conversation, Amsler, that you mentioned, talking to Mayor Nickerson, where he said,
Yeah.
he went straight to his grant writer. He said, how much money do you need to go after every single grant that you possibly can? They said, this number. He said, you got it. It's just, it's scalable, right? Like it's scalable. So we can adjust it. So let's
And-
let's
and
put
it-
it
and
on.
it's a
Let's
s-
talk.
And it's
Yeah.
a strategy, and that was my question to Chris this morning. So what is our strategy here? Is it that we've seen, if we have not, and again, I don't have this number, this was one of the asks that I had for Chris. Like if we go back in the years of 20, I don't know what we're seeing, 2021 to 2024, how much did we get for the grant writer? How much did we pay them? How much did we get? How many of them were, how many did we actually work on? And we're successful. And again, I know it's not a direct correlation dollar per dollar, but we should have a strategy because we have so many projects. We don't have money. So if money's gonna come from somewhere, it has to come from these 2 areas.
So we're going to leave grant writer, Vero, you're saying leave grant writer and lobbyist the way they are for now?
Yes.
Until we have a bigger conversation.
I think so. I think so.
Yes,
And-
because
and we'll have
it would
At
be
the
me
next commission
guessing.
meeting.
Yeah, because
Yes.
I don't know that I
Right.
can.
The next
guess
regular
on-
commission meeting.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Chris,
I'm
is
in.
that enough time for you to come back with? Chris, is the next commission meeting enough time for you to come with something that you think might be beneficial for us to hear?
Draft agenda is going out tomorrow, so most likely not.
That would be a September meeting item, and we have a budget to finish by the end of September, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Can we do it for September? Do you think that's enough time, given everything else you guys have going on, to try to get something?
I've already asked, after my conversation this morning with Commissioner Ramsler, I've already asked our grant writer to give us the information on what they have pulled in for us. The clerk said that she can survey the other local municipalities to see what they spend on lobbyists as well as grant writers.
We could circulate this information before our next
Right.
budget meeting, maybe, so we have some, maybe you may not be able to pull it in time for August, but you
Correct.
can
We
share
could-
some of the data so we can independently review it at least.
And especially with with both of those, to Vero's point, it's what are they spending, what are they getting, and what are they getting in terms of the work that's happening, and what are they accomplishing? So what are they getting is like the work, and the accomplishments are completely different. It's like, yeah, we wrote, 50 grants for you and we got one, so that's, am I saying the right thing, Vero?
Yeah, so it's a correlation of those things and
Productivity and accomplishments.
yeah, so I know we're short on time maybe to get all the answers right, but I think some sort of a comparison to what we're currently doing would be helpful, at least 2 examples of other strategies that are being in place.
All right, so let's take a look at the other admin portions here. I don't remember.
Want to finish item, object code 31, since we landed in the middle of that one? I have other things in 31, and then we could check that off the list.
Sure, yeah, we're still there.
Okay. HR. So there's a huge jump in HR from $3,000 budgeted for fiscal '24 to 20,000. And the zero spend also concerns me, because I would have thought something was spent because, well, I don't know. So I'd just like to hear what that's about. Why nothing spent on 3,000 this year, and why asking for 20 for next year?
My understanding here in the village clerk has typically been the HR person, director, what have you. We need an actual HR person to come in and write our policies and procedures. That's going to cover everything from how we verify sick time to what employees' rights are when it comes to discipline, things like that. So the 20,000, excuse me, the $20,000 figure was just kind of a back of the napkin math type of thing for what that would cost us this year to have a consultant come in and start creating those policies and procedures based on our unique situation.
Are there municipal, like League of Cities, do they have any of these kind of things available to you? Templates, formats that do the clerk associations have these things? I mean, we're not the first city to write an HR manual, and a lot of this is, cookie cutter boilerplate stuff. So is there an opportunity? It's a lot of money, $20,000. That's, 2/3 of a, I'm going to always say this, is 2/3 of a 0.1 millage, is on one little item in our budget. So that it seems like a big chunk of money.
It is, and the decision that the commission needs to make is, do you want to continue the way we have, which is kind of ad hoc, or do you want to hire a professional HR to come in and get us set up, and then we can continue trucking? It's completely your choice.
What is-
Can I say on that? I just write it in between, I think. I was gonna say on the similar lanes of the League of Cities. I'm sure villages of our size, not all of them must have a person for HR doing this, or at some point, maybe they've hired someone to help them out. I wonder if there is some sort of a help that we can go ask from these municipalities and leverage whatever work they've already done. That wouldn't need for us to go from zero to $20,000. I would like to explore that first before we commit to the budget.
So you're suggesting that we chop the whole 20,000 out, do that exploration, and possibly next year we'll have a better idea of what really needs to be spent, if anything at all?
Yeah, because I think if, Chris, if you have a need specific for HR and it's more on the lines of manuals and procedures, these are standard documents that it has to exist. If the research has not been done yet, there's time to do it. I will use 2025 as a learning curve for that. I will use it as, okay, this is what I've been able to find. I still have holes, and maybe 2026 is a good opportunity to come with, this is my ask, and this is where it's going for, more than here's 20 grand. I know I need help, but I'm not totally sure that that's going to be enough, or,
Not enough.
so I think it's from a very small municipality that does not have anything, and I can understand how frustrating it must be. You're running multiple hats and you haven't staffed, with multiple hats all the time. I think use 2025 as an opportunity to learn what holes we have and what can we gather from best cases out there, municipalities are already doing, League of Cities, whatever it might be. And then let's budget for the following year, knowing better.
I'll second that.
Yeah, I'd be in support of that as well.
Okay.
Jonathan?
I don't, HR was the last one that I was planning on looking at in
Amend your
31.
Opinion on that.
It was slated at 20.
Yeah, drop it
Zero.
to 0. My other,
Well, actually, I'm sorry, before we change it to 0, we had adopted, we slated 3 last year, but we
spend any.
spent 0. Is there any expected expenditures in this line item for the rest of this fiscal?
I put you on the spot for that, Madam Clerk.
It's not even, it is the wearing two hats. It is very, very difficult. We need the manual that we have to kind of be looked at from top to bottom. Can I do it? Yes, I'm certified, but I can't do that and elections and meetings and agendas and day-to-day stuff. We need somebody, and this is the part that you hate to say, but I don't want us to get into a position where we get sued or something because our policies aren't tight. And we have a lot of holes in our policy.
We lost our deputy clerk, correct? Could this be an opportunity that when we go out looking for a new candidate, that candidate comes certified to help with that project?
We cannot
Afford that.
I've gotten 4 applications. Only 1 might be qualified. We can't afford it. We can't afford to pay.
Well, I think what Vero said very well is that we're not saying no to this. We're saying it might make more sense next year after something comes to us that we know is better researched and we know what we're really putting money down for. So, I mean, the village has been figuring it out for a long time. And in the next year, figure out what we really need, what you're asking for, what it's going to cost, and then we'll have a better idea. Does that make sense, Vero?
Yeah, no, and again, I see the challenge, Pamela. I hear you, and
Oh.
I can imagine what you're describing. But it's an opportunity to, in this year, maybe itemize it. When it comes to budget, I'm not a big fan of just bulk money just placed in. And when we talk about procedures and process and costing $20,000, I would want to know exactly what it is. Are we talking about outsourcing this? Are we talking to hiring someone that comes in and studies who we are? I think there's a lot of unknowns at this stage, and I think we are in the right track by you bringing this up.
Yep.
I would say use your experience. It's been a rough one for what you're describing, to highlight those needs to the point that you can then associate a cost and come to the commission for it. I would use 2025 as an opportunity to do that for the first time ever in the village.
The question posed was, is there anything else that we need to keep any of that money in there for? And there is money in here for pre-employment screening, so that money is there. And I know that's another specific HR related thing. So I'm glad to see that money's in there separately, so at least we know that can happen. And it's not all being spent there. So again, I'm good with cutting the whole 20,000 for now and keeping the pre-employment screening money in there separately. Okay,
Do we have it? So we're down to, from the 20 down to 0?
0.
Okay.
Also in 31, I have a note about,
Can I ask that you at least put the 3 back, and then I can start working with the 3? And
working with
then the 3 that's in there.
what will you spend it on?
I'm gonna have to now go out and maybe contact the League of Cities. I may have to gather the templates and stuff on my own, but templates aren't even free.
No?
No, I've checked. You know, I mean, yeah, I can go online and get a basic, you know, some type of basic template or whatever, but to get somebody to actually professionals to look over these things and make sure we're on the right track. I don't want to be out there spinning my wheels.
Okay, do you guys want to leave 3 in there for that purpose?
I'm
Sure.
okay with that.
I'm okay with that. Okay, 31 also includes public communications. There's $35,000 budgeted, 17,000 spent year to date, and only 15,000 budget. I don't even know what that is necessarily. I have a feeling what it might include. Chris, what all is lumped into that?
That is the website. I believe we use that to fund the app purchase.
I thought the website was somewhere else.
I think that is it. We generically increased public communications. The previous fiscal was low. We bumped it to 35 because we didn't know what we would be looking at for costs when it comes to the application or the My Biscayne Park app or communications system or what have you. So we do have the app that is now in, so that's going to be just reduced down to what we need for the website. And
Is
So
this
the
a-
app doesn't have ongoing costs associated with it,
it
Chris?
does have an annual cost.
How much of the 15,000 is the app?
I believe the app is just under 7,000, if I remember correctly.
So 7,000 for an app and the other 8 is for the website.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
I thought, I could have sworn I saw website in here elsewhere. No? Anybody?
I don't remember seeing somewhere else.
I thought website was in here under something else. Okay. Does that include any other kinds of public communications, Chris? Because I know it's not a topic we're going to hash out now, but there are other ways to communicate with the public that I think we need to do. And one of the things we need to communicate to the public is the fact that we have an app. So we still have very few registered users on our app, which by the way is really, it's not perfect. And I go in there and I struggle sometimes, but it's pretty damn cool. And people are responsive to it, but only like 47 people are responsive to it right now. So we need to communicate better about the app, and it's going to take some grassroots kind of things to do that. So under public communications, Chris, do we have enough money in there to do app, website, and some other things to get these messages out to become more digital? I'm thinking things like median signs and things like that. I'm an advocate for some of those in this village of people walking around, and I don't want to do a whole presentation here tonight on this, but this old-fashioned stuff works really well for us, and we've got to get engagement in that app, and it's not happening. So that was my question, Chris, is what is public communications? Is it enough? Because if that's an area that you need more money to get some of these things done, I'd like to hear that.
No, public communications does not include that. The 15,000 does not include that.
Is that promotional activities?
Can be, yes.
48? There's a line item in promotional activities that just is more generally promotional activities.
Yeah, no, that promotional activities, that is, the things like we just got some pens and carabiner.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
those
that to promote
badges
the
and
app.
stuff, yeah. So I'd like to hear more about, for the next time, what public communications includes and what else would be necessary there, because it's still one of the biggest complaints I get from people is they don't know what's going on with the village. And I tell them, sign up for the app, but
I know, GoGov had a marketing plan when you kind of lock them in, Chris. Had that, I know they were providing, I think they're providing the materials, but obviously not the cost of any sort of printouts or anything like that. Am I saying that right? Do you have the potential to team up with them to build a promotion plan?
They provided the materials for us to use and the plan for social media promotion.
Okay.
And that's what we did just prior to and just after launching.
Okay, so that's done, and that would be within the $16,000 that you have this year.
Correct.
Okay, got it. I think I agree that we need to whether it's flyers, whether it's, some other sort of material, it could be all over, like specific campaign that we do for the app. It seems like now that we invested on it and it's working, it's making things more easier, in terms of streamlining a lot of the requests and accessing pictures when you need it, and specific to code, I've seen a great advantage and public works. So I think it'll be great just to hear your feedback on the $15,000 besides what we're gonna be spending for GoGov and the app. If there will be something we could do, if you needed to add, if you don't have it anywhere else for
So
promotion.
if I can wrap that up, what you and I think we just agreed on, Vero, is leave the $15,000 in there, but ask Chris at the next workshop to explain better what all is going to be covered in there, and give him an opportunity to ask for more here if he can say these are specific things under the heading of public communications that I think would benefit us in terms of promoting the app and whatever else he comes up with. But I think there's an opportunity there.
I'm gonna jump in on that one. I am not a marketer. I do not have anything anywhere near a marketing degree. If the commission would like to do an all-out marketing campaign for the app, we can certainly do that. We would have to hire in for it. That's not
I know that
something
we have
that
to hire. I don't think we have to hire for that.
I'm telling you, that's not something that we're capable of doing to the degree I think. that
Okay,
you-
well, I'm going to tell you that a couple years ago, the topic was not the app, it was the website. And that was the way we were getting people to engage. And we did yard signs and door hangers, and we boosted our engagement in a huge way like that.
You can direct
put it-
me to get quotes for yard signs and door hangers, and that's what I can do. But as far as coming up with a marketing plan,
We don't
that's
need a
not
marketing
something
plan
I'm
and we don't need a
capable of
marketing
doing.
firm. We're 3/4 of a square mile. We can put median signs out and door hangers on doors. It's cheap, it's fast, it's effective, it's like that. It works. We don't have to overthink this. So,
It
that-
could even be a workshop specifically for it. People that don't even know how to download the app yet, or don't know where to find it if they have an Android phone versus a iOS, and maybe it's a workshop for an hour, maybe it's during a presentation during a commission meeting, and just highlight using the people that come to a commission meeting as well.
we have to get people to show up for that, Vero. So it's the same problem. You still have to get the message out. So get the message out to attend a meeting, to learn how to use it, or
Yeah.
get a message out to, here, scan this and download it, and boom. People just don't know it exists. So we're not going to solve it tonight, but and it is that simple. So let's leave this money in here and let Chris come back and explain better what exactly that $15,000 is for. And Chris, if you want to say, here's how much it would cost, in the record somewhere, you're going to find, I designed the door hangers and the yard signs, and Mario had them printed, and we had them out in a minute, and it worked. You can go find the invoice. It's cheap. It's a couple $100 for yard signs and a couple $100 for door hangers.
Like I said, you guys give me direction on what you want me to do for marketing, and I'm happy to do that. But as far as coming up with a plan, I can't.
Well, that is the plan. So that's a plan, not the plan. That's a plan. So you guys want to ask him to come back with those numbers?
I'm fine with that. I think
Yep.
get a more.
Okay,
comprehensive list
Do
of-
that. Okay.
All right, do we have any, we were in 31.
That's everything I had in 31.
Okay,
Can I ask, guys, it's 10:12. I think I need to log out. I don't know how much longer you were planning to go.
I didn't even realize what time it was.
It's
I'm on a-
10:12.
I'm on a plane at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
well, Amzer, I know you're not feeling well, so I
No,
don't think
that's
anyone's gonna
why I
compel
just-
you to stick around.
I'm fried, guys. I'm okay with you going, and then I can catch up with the recording. I don't mind it at all. I just wanted to be mindful that it's 10:12 already.
Well, look, we're not going to finish it all anyway. So,
You want to try and get through admin?
Admin is one of the biggest, so.
it's one of the biggest, and maybe if she's needs to go, I understand it. Maybe we pick up from here when we come back.
We could do that.
Do we want to call another workshop? Because we didn't get through in our first hearing, the first workshop, we didn't get through it. Do you want to wait for the second one, which is, when is that?
I was like, consensus on this side is that we're gonna need another one. What's that?
No one's scheduled for the 14th.
14th, oh, geez, I'm sorry.
That's when we have the second one scheduled.
That's when we have the second one. So maybe we should just keep that one, because I'll tell you, between now and August 14th, I'm out of town the rest of this week. I'm out of town all next week and the weekend, and I'm arriving back for the commission meeting on the 13th and the hearing and the workshop on the 14th. So I wouldn't be available anyway. So if you just want to do that one, and
Yeah.
maybe we'll need to schedule another one after that, if
Well,
we
let's-
need to.
Let's just stick with the 14th because it's already calendared and everybody's available.
Yeah.
And then we'll just have to go from there. All right,
Okay. Well, I know it didn't feel super productive. We got through a lot, and the police is a big deal every year. It's almost half our budget.
by my record, we knocked out about 177,000 from that one.
God damn.
1,900 from commission and already for admin 17.
So where are we?
Pretty
Almost
productive.
$200,000,
About almost, yeah, about
almost $200,000.
100K.
We're a third of the way there.
Yeah.
Okay. Feel better, Vero.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good night.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Here, Vero. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.